The galaxy had known war for 2 years. Across 1,000 worlds, the Grand Army of the Republic clashed with the Separatist droid army in battles that consumed entire civilizations. Jedi, who had spent lifetimes as peacekeepers, now served as generals, leading clone soldiers bred for combat into meat grinders of laser fire and exploding metal. The Clone Wars had become a machine of suffering that ground forward without pause, without mercy, without end. On Christophsis, that machine was working at full capacity. The crystalline world's capital city had become a war zone. Towering spires of blue-green crystal that had stood for millennia now lay shattered across streets choked with rubble and bodies. Separatist forces had launched a massive offensive to retake the planet, pouring battle droids through breaches in Republic defenses faster than clone troopers could cut them down. AATs rolled through the streets. Vulture droids screamed overhead, and caught in the crossfire, as always, were the civilians who had nowhere left to run. General Obi-Wan Kenobi directed the defense from a makeshift command post, his voice calm despite the chaos erupting around him. "Rex, pull your men back to secondary positions. We're being flanked from the east." "Copy that, General." Captain Rex's voice crackled through the comm. "But if we give up this ground, we lose the civilian shelter behind us." "I know. We'll hold as long as we can." "Anakin, where's that air support?" Anakin Skywalker's response came through static and blaster fire. "Tied up with vulture droids, Master. They've got 3 squadrons in the air. I can't break through to wait." The comm went silent. Anakin, respond." When Skywalker's voice returned, it carried something Obi-Wan rarely heard from his former Padawan: uncertainty. "Master, you need to see this. Above the eastern approach. I don't know what that is." Obi-Wan turned his electro-binoculars toward the eastern sky and felt the Force shudder. A streak of fire descended from the upper atmosphere, but not like a crashing ship or orbital bombardment. This fire burned wrong. It moved with purpose, with direction, cutting a path through the sky that left a trail of flames that didn't dissipate. The light it cast was orange and red, but somehow darker than fire should be, as if the flames consumed light itself. The streak resolved into a shape, a figure on a vehicle, a speeder bike of some kind, but wreathed entirely in those wrong-colored flames, and the rider had no face, only a skull wrapped in fire. "What in the name of—" Obi-Wan breathed. The burning specter descended on the Separatist eastern column like a comet. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. Johnny Blaze had been chasing Kazan across 3 dimensions when the demon's escape vector tore through something fundamental. One moment they were hurtling through the space between realities. The next, Kazan was gone, disintegrated by the dimensional shear, and Johnny was falling through an alien sky toward a city made of crystal and fire. The spirit of vengeance didn't care about the how or why. The spirit sensed what waited below and screamed its hunger. Sin, guilt, pain inflicted, and deaths caused, and innocent screaming. Feast, punish, burn. Johnny felt it too. Even from this height, even before he could see individual figures, he could feel the weight of it. Suffering on a scale that beggared anything he'd experienced. Thousands dying, thousands killing, and the guilt, layers upon layers of it, so thick it was almost visible, a miasma of transgression that covered the city like fog. He'd landed in a war, and the spirit of vengeance had found its feast. The Hell Cycle's wheels touched down on empty air and found purchase because the Hell Cycle didn't care about physics any more than hellfire cared about armor. Johnny rocketed toward the largest concentration of guilt he could sense, a column of mechanical soldiers advancing on a position where he felt terror radiating from hundreds of trapped souls. Battle droids. He'd never seen anything like them, but he understood them immediately. Machines built to kill, no souls to burn, no guilt to punish, but the destruction they caused still demanded answer. Ghost Rider hit the Separatist column like a meteor. The first AAT tank exploded when his chain tore through its reactor. He'd drawn the weapon mid-descent, and now it extended in his grip, whipping through the air in an arc that carved through 3 more tanks before the droid infantry could even register his presence. Hellfire burst from every link, and where it touched Separatist machinery, that machinery died, not just destroyed but consumed. Metal running like water, circuits screaming with something that sounded almost like pain. The droids opened fire. Hundreds of blaster bolts converged on the burning skeleton from every direction. Ghost Rider didn't bother to dodge. The bolts struck his bones and did nothing. They couldn't hurt him. Nothing they had could hurt him. He waded through their ranks and he broke them. His chains scythed through battle droids by the dozens, hellfire melting through their armor like it wasn't there. His fists crushed their heads and tore their limbs free. The Hell Cycle roared through their formations, its wheels leaving trails of fire that turned the street into an inferno. In 60 seconds, he destroyed more droids than the Republic defenders had killed in 6 hours. But Ghost Rider wasn't just destroying machines. He was looking for something. There, a command unit, organic, living being directing the assault, responsible for its casualties. The tactical droid never saw him coming. Ghost Rider's hand closed around its photoreceptor head and crushed it to scrap. Then he turned to the being beside it, a Neimoidian in officer's armor, squealing in terror. "No, please, I was following orders. Ghost Rider lifted him by the throat and looked into his eyes. "Show me your sins." The Penance Stare ignited. Obi-Wan felt the death through the Force, not a physical death, but something deeper, a soul burning, a consciousness collapsing inward as it was forced to experience every moment of pain it had ever caused. The Neimoidian officer had ordered the bombardment of a refugee convoy. He'd laughed while he did it. He wasn't laughing anymore. When the burning skull dropped the body, the Neimoidian was still alive. Technically, his eyes were open but saw nothing. His mouth moved but made no sound. Whatever had been inside him was gone, burned away from the inside out. "General," Rex's voice was barely a whisper, "what is that thing?" Obi-Wan had no answer. He reached out with the Force, trying to sense the creature's nature, its intentions, its very existence. Nothing. He felt nothing. The Force slid around it like water around a stone. The entity existed in a blind spot in the universe itself. "I don't know," Obi-Wan admitted, "but it's not finished." Ghost Rider remounted his Hell Cycle and turned toward the next Separatist formation. Then the next, then the next. For 20 minutes, the spirit of vengeance carved through the Separatist offensive like a scythe through wheat. Tanks melted. Droid battalions were reduced to slag. Every organic commander the creature found received the same treatment, that horrible stare, then collapse. By the time it stopped, the Separatist assault on the eastern approach had been completely annihilated. And then the creature turned to face the Republic lines. Clone troopers raised their weapons. Jedi ignited their lightsabers. The thing just stood there, skull wreathed in flames, empty eye sockets somehow conveying assessment. "Hold your fire," Obi-Wan ordered, stepping forward. His lightsaber hummed in his hand, but he kept it low. "Everyone hold." He walked toward the creature alone. Behind him, Anakin landed his starfighter and vaulted out, rushing to catch up. "Master, wait." "Stay back, Anakin. That thing just destroyed an entire Separatist column. We don't know what it, which is precisely why I'm going to talk to it." Obi-Wan stopped 10 meters from the burning figure. This close, the heat was intense but not unbearable, almost as if the fire knew not to burn him. The skull regarded him with those empty, flaming sockets. "I am Obi-Wan Kenobi," he said carefully, "Jedi Knight and General of the Republic Army. You've just saved a great many lives. We're grateful. But I need to understand, what are you? Why are you here?" For a long moment, the skull didn't respond. Then slowly, the flames began to recede. The transformation was horrible to watch. Fire drew inward, bone became flesh. The skull developed features, eyes, nose, skin, hair. In seconds, the burning demon was gone, replaced by a human man in a leather jacket. He looked exhausted, haunted. "My name's Johnny Blaze," the man said, his voice rough. I'm not from here, not from this galaxy. I was chasing something and ended up..." He looked around at the destruction, the bodies, the crystal towers shattered by war. "Ended up in your war, I guess." "Not from this galaxy," Obi-Wan repeated slowly. "Another dimension, another universe. I know how it sounds." "Actually, I've heard stranger." Obi-Wan studied the man, his guilt, his weariness, and beneath it all, the barely contained rage that had manifested as that burning skull. "That power you wield, that fire, where does it come from?" Johnny's jaw tightened. "Somewhere bad, but I use it for something good, or I try to." His eyes went to the Neimoidians still lying catatonic in the street. He killed civilians, refugees. He thought it was funny, so I showed him what he did. "Made him feel it. You destroyed his mind." "I showed him the truth. What he did with it was up to him." Johnny met Obi-Wan's eyes. "I'm not going to apologize for that. He earned it." Anakin pushed past Obi-Wan, his presence in the Force roiling with fascination and something darker, resonance. "What else can you do? That fire, it went through those tanks like they were nothing. Can you control it, direct it?" "Anakin," Obi-Wan warned, "I'm just asking, Master. If this guy wants to help us, I don't." Both Jedi looked at Johnny. "I don't want to help you," Johnny repeated. "I don't want to help anyone. I want to go home." He looked up at the alien sky, the unfamiliar stars. "But something tells me that's not going to be easy. And in the meantime," he gestured at the devastation around them, Republic and Separatist dead alike. Buildings burning, civilians huddled in ruins. What is this, a war?" "The Clone Wars," Obi-Wan said. "A conflict between the Galactic Republic and the Separatist Alliance. It's been raging for 2 years." "How many dead?" The question hung in the air. Obi-Wan hesitated. "Billions," Anakin said quietly. "Soldiers, civilians, billions across thousands of worlds." Johnny closed his eyes. When he opened them, something fundamental had shifted. "Billions," he repeated, "and all that guilt, all that sin just floating around, exposed." He laughed, a hollow sound with no humor in it. "The Spirit is never going to let me leave, not with a feast like this waiting." "Spirit?" Obi-Wan asked. "The thing inside me, the reason I can do what I do. It punishes the guilty. That's its purpose. That's what it exists for." Johnny looked at Obi-Wan with eyes that held too much knowledge. "And right now, it's telling me that everyone here, Everyone in this whole damn galaxy is guilty of something. His gaze moved past Obi-Wan to Anakin. The young Jedi felt it like a physical weight. Especially you. The Jedi Council chamber felt smaller with the holographic images of its absent members flickering in their seats. Mace Windu sat in person, as did Yoda, but the others, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Plo Koon, Aayla Secura, attended from their respective battlefronts. Their blue-tinted forms a reminder that the war had scattered the Order across the galaxy. Obi-Wan stood in the center of the chamber delivering his report. The holographic recording played behind him. Ghost Rider descending on the Separatist column, the destruction that followed, the Penance Stare reducing a living being to a hollow shell. The entity calls itself Ghost Rider, Obi-Wan explained. The human host is Johnny Blaze, who claims to be from another dimension entirely. He arrived during the battle and single-handedly destroyed an entire Separatist armored division in approximately 20 minutes. Destroyed how? Mace Windu leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the recording. That fire, it's not plasma, not conventional flame. Our sensors couldn't even classify it. He calls it hellfire. It appears to burn on a spiritual level, for lack of a better term. Physical armor provides no protection, neither do ray shields. And when he uses what he calls the Penance Stare on a living being, Obi-Wan paused. He forces them to experience every pain they've ever inflicted on others, simultaneously. The Neimoidian officer he used it on is still catatonic. Medical droids say his brain activity is almost non-existent. His body lives, but the person is gone. Silence fell over the chamber. The recording showed Ghost Rider transforming back into Johnny Blaze, the fire retreating into flesh that shouldn't have been able to contain it. Sense him in the Force, you cannot, Yoda said. It wasn't a question. No, Master. It's not like he's shielding himself. It's as if he doesn't exist within the Force at all. I've never encountered anything like it. A being outside the Force, Ki-Adi-Mundi murmured. The implications are troubling. If he cannot be sensed, he cannot be predicted, cannot be influenced. Cannot be controlled, Mace added darkly. He also cannot be mind-tricked, I suspect, Plo Koon offered. Which raises the question, what can affect him? What are his limitations? From what I observed, I'm not certain he has any. Obi-Wan stroked his beard. Blaster fire did nothing. He walked through a thermal detonation without slowing. His chains cut through durasteel like flimsiplast, and he seems to be able to transform between his human form and the other at will. Then he is a weapon, Mace said. Perhaps the most powerful weapon to emerge in this war. The question is, whose weapon is he? His own, I believe. Obi-Wan chose his next words carefully. He has no allegiance to the Republic or the Separatists. He spoke of something he called the spirit of vengeance, an entity that compels him to punish the guilty. Not enemies, not opposing forces, the guilty. He made it quite clear that he sees sin on both sides of this conflict. Both sides, Mace repeated. He would judge us, the Jedi. He would judge everyone, Master Windu. That's what he does, what he is. The chamber fell silent again. The weight of that statement pressed down on all of them. Jedi who had spent 2 years commanding armies, ordering soldiers to their deaths, making impossible choices in the name of the greater good. Jedi who had, in ways large and small, abandoned the principles they'd once held sacred. None of them were innocent. They all knew it. Where is he now? Aayla Secura asked. We offered him quarters on the Resolute. He accepted, though he made clear he isn't our guest. Just someone without other options at the moment. Anakin has been attempting to establish rapport. Skywalker. Mace's tone carried familiar disapproval. Is that wise? Probably not. But Anakin is fascinated by the creature, and more importantly, the creature is fascinated by Anakin. It said something troubling before we left Christophsis. Obi-Wan hesitated. It looked at Anakin and said that everyone in this galaxy is guilty of something. Then it said, especially you. The holographic Jedi exchanged glances. Yoda's ears lowered slightly. The chosen one, Yoda murmured, sense his conflict. This spirit does. The darkness in young Skywalker. We all sense Anakin's conflict, Mace said. We've been monitoring it for years, but we also know his value to the war effort and his potential to bring balance to the Force. This creature, this Ghost Rider, it could destabilize him, push him towards something we can't control, or pull him back from it, Obi-Wan countered. If the spirit punishes guilt and Anakin fears that punishment, perhaps it will encourage him to examine his own choices more carefully. Fear is not the Jedi way. No, but neither is war. And here we are. The rebuke hung in the air. Obi-Wan rarely challenged the Council so directly, but 2 years of watching his friends die and his principles erode had worn away some of his deference. Recommend, what do you, Obi-Wan? Yoda asked. I recommend we don't try to control him. Don't try to recruit him or deploy him as an asset. He'll see through any manipulation instantly, and if he judges us as enemies. Obi-Wan shook his head. We can't stop him. I don't think anyone can. Our best option is to be honest with him, show him what we're fighting for, and let him make his own judgments. And if he judges us guilty, then we'd better make sure we're fighting for the right reasons, hadn't we? Anakin found Johnny Blaze in the Resolute's hangar bay, sitting on a cargo crate and staring at his hell cycle. The vehicle had transformed along with its rider. It looked like a normal speeder bike now if you ignored the faint wisps of smoke that curled from its frame. That thing, Anakin said, approaching slowly. The bike. It changed when you did. It's part of me, part of the spirit. Johnny didn't look up. Everything I have is part of it. The chains, the fire, the cycle. They exist because it exists. And it exists because people like that Nemoidian exist. People who hurt innocents. People who are guilty. Johnny's voice was flat, exhausted. The Nemoidian was easy. He enjoyed what he did. No ambiguity, no excuses. But most people aren't like that. Most people are guilty of smaller things. Lies, betrayals, cruelty they justified to themselves. The spirit doesn't care about scale. Sin is sin. Anakin sat on a crate across from him, studying the man's face. He looked human, completely human, but Anakin couldn't shake the image of that burning skull, those empty eye sockets that somehow saw everything. You said I was especially guilty, Anakin said. Why? Johnny finally looked at him. His eyes were brown, ordinary, but something moved behind them, something watching, waiting. I don't read minds, I don't know what you've done, but the spirit senses guilt like a shark senses blood in water. And when it looked at you, Johnny shook his head. You're carrying something heavy, kid. Something that's eating you alive. The spirit wants it, wants to burn it out of you. I haven't done anything wrong. Then you've got nothing to worry about. Anakin's jaw tightened. You don't know me. You don't know what I've sacrificed for this war. Everyone sacrifices for war. That doesn't make the things they do okay. Johnny stood, and even in his human form, there was something dangerous about him, a coiled tension that could explode into hellfire at any moment. You want to know why the Spirit is interested in you? Because you're conflicted. You've got darkness in you and you're fighting it, but you're also feeding it. Every time you give in to anger, every time you do something you know is wrong and tell yourself it was necessary, you feed it. And sooner or later, it's going to swallow you whole. You don't know that. I know exactly that, because I've lived it. Johnny stepped closer, and Anakin resisted the urge to step back. You think you're the first person to carry a monster inside them? The spirit of vengeance has been with me for years. I've felt it pushing me to do terrible things. Felt it taking over when my control slipped. And every time I gave in, every time I let it have what it wanted, I lost a little more of myself. So how do you stop it? You don't stop it, you choose. Every moment, every day, you choose what you're going to be, the monster or the man. Johnny's eyes bored into Anakin's, and right now, you're not choosing, you're just reacting to the war, to your fear, to whatever it is you're so afraid of losing. And that's how the darkness wins. That's how you become the thing you hate. Anakin wanted to argue, wanted to defend himself, his choices, his necessity. But something about Johnny's words cut through his defenses in a way that Obi-Wan's gentle prodding never had. This wasn't a Jedi lecture about attachment and control. This was a man who carried a demon telling Anakin that he recognized the signs. The woman on Christophsis, Anakin said quietly, the one in the refugee center. When the Separatists were advancing, I considered leaving them, the civilians. I thought about pulling my men back and letting the droids have the sector so we could reinforce the main line. I would have saved more soldiers, won the battle faster. But you didn't. No. Obi-Wan convinced me to hold. And then you showed up and Anakin stopped. But I thought about it. I was ready to do it. Those people would have died because I decided they were acceptable losses. Johnny studied him for a long moment. But they didn't die. You made the right call. This time, what about next time? What about when Obi-Wan isn't there to stop me? Anakin's voice cracked. What happens when I stop caring about acceptable losses altogether? Then you become the thing the Spirit was made to punish. The words hit Anakin like a physical blow. He looked away, unable to meet Johnny's eyes. You're scared, Johnny said. It wasn't an accusation, just an observation. Scared of what you might become. That's good. That fear is the only thing keeping you human. The moment you stop being afraid of the monster is the moment it takes over. The Jedi say fear leads to the dark side. The Jedi say a lot of things, but I've seen the dark side, real darkness, the kind that damns souls forever. And I've seen people resist it, not through detachment or suppression, but through choice. Conscious, constant choice to be better than the thing inside them. Johnny picked up his jacket from the crate and slung it over his shoulder. You've got the power to do great things or terrible things, probably both before you're done. The question is which one you'll choose when it matters most. He walked toward the hangar exit, then paused. One more thing, kid. The Spirit showed me something when I looked at you. Not your past, your future. What you're going to do if you keep going down this road. Anakin's blood went cold. What did you see? Johnny was silent for a long moment. Fire, he said finally. Fire everywhere. And you at the center of it, burning everything you ever loved. He left Anakin alone in the hangar, staring at his hands and seeing flames. The Resolute received new orders 6 hours later. Proceed to the Ryloth system. where Separatist forces under the command of Wat Tambor had begun a brutal occupation. The Techno-Union leader was using the civilian population as living shields, executing anyone who resisted. Thousands already dead, Admiral Yulin reported during the briefing. Tambor is strip mining the planet and working the Twi'leks to death in the process. Local resistance is fighting back, but they're outgunned and outnumbered. Obi-Wan studied the tactical display. A liberation operation will need ground forces, air support, naval superiority. You'll need me. Everyone turned. Johnny Blaze stood in the doorway of the briefing room, his expression hard. "This Tambor," Johnny said. "He's killing civilians, enslaving them?" "Yes," Ahsoka answered. She'd been watching the stranger with wary fascination since he came aboard. "The Techno-Union is using Ryloth's people as slave labor in the factories. Anyone who can't work is executed." Johnny's eyes flickered, literally flickered, a flash of flame behind the brown, and for just a moment the temperature in the room spiked. "Then I'm coming with you," he said. "And when we find Tambor, he's mine." Obi-Wan exchanged a glance with Anakin. This was exactly what the Council had warned against. The creature choosing its own targets, acting as judge and executioner outside any chain of command. But it was also exactly what they needed. A being of unstoppable power aimed at one of the Separatists' most brutal leaders. "Agreed," Obi-Wan said, "but we do this together. You follow our tactical plan until we reach Tambor. Then he's yours." Johnny nodded once. Behind him, unseen by everyone in the room, the shadows seemed to writhe with anticipation. The spirit of vengeance was going to war. The liberation of Ryloth began with fire from the sky. Republic cruisers broke through the Separatist blockade after 3 days of brutal naval combat, opening corridors for ground assault ships to descend on the occupied world. Clone troopers poured from Elat gunships into the blasted ruins of Twi'lek cities, meeting droid resistance at every landing zone. Jedi generals led the charge, Mace Windu in the south, Obi-Wan in the north, Anakin's forces punching through the center toward the capital of Lesu, where Wat Tambor had established his command center. Johnny Blaze rode with Anakin's assault group, though "with" was a generous term. The Hell Cycle screamed across Ryloth's surface at speeds the Republic gunships couldn't match, leaving a trail of burning droids in its wake. Ghost Rider hit Separatist positions before the clones even arrived, softening defenses, destroying armor, turning organized resistance into scattered chaos. The clones didn't know what to make of him. Some called him a demon, others called him a weapon. Captain Rex, ever practical, simply called him effective. "He's cleared 3 droid battalions in the last hour," Rex reported, as their gunship descended toward a staging area outside Lesu. "Whatever that thing is, it's worth 100 Jedi." "He's not a thing," Anakin said quietly. "He's a man carrying something he never asked for." "With respect, General, I saw what he did to that Neimoidian on Christophsis. That wasn't a man, that was judgment." Anakin couldn't argue. He'd seen it too. And he'd felt the weight of Johnny's words in the hangar, the warning about fire and destruction and becoming the thing he hated, the vision of his future that the Spirit had shown. He still didn't know if he believed it, but he couldn't stop thinking about it. The gunship touched down in a plaza that had once been a marketplace. Now it was rubble, stalls smashed, goods scattered, bodies of Twi'leks left where they'd fallen. The Separatists hadn't even bothered to move them. "Spread out and secure the perimeter," Rex ordered his men, "Watch for booby traps. These clankers have been getting creative." Anakin stepped over the body of a Twi'lek child, a girl, maybe 6 years old, shot in the back while running, and felt something twist in his chest. This was what they were fighting against. This was why the war mattered, why the sacrifices were necessary. But another voice whispered, "How many children have died because of your orders? How many acceptable losses?" He pushed the thought away and activated his comlink. Ahsoka status report. "Moving through the residential district, Master. Heavy droid presence, but we're making progress. The locals are helping, showing us back routes, pointing out ambush positions. They really want these Seps gone." "Any sign of Tambor?" "Nothing yet. Intel says he's in the Citadel at the city center. That's where..." She stopped. "Wait, I'm getting reports from the forward scouts. Something's happening at the eastern industrial sector." "Separatist counterattack?" "No, they're saying it's him. Ghost Rider, but something's wrong." The factory had been a processing plant for Ryloth's mineral exports before the war. Under Separatist occupation, it had become something else, a labor camp where Twi'lek civilians were worked until they dropped, then replaced with fresh bodies from the surrounding villages. Johnny had sensed it from 3 kilometers away, the guilt, the suffering, the deaths. He'd left the Republic advance without a word, racing toward the source of that psychic stench, and found exactly what the spirit had promised: sin, concentrated and unrepentant. The factory floor was a charnel house. Twi'leks in rags operated massive machines under the guns of battle droids, their bodies gaunt, their eyes hollow. Overseers, Neimoidians, and Skakoans in techno-union uniforms watched from elevated platforms, shouting orders, occasionally executing a worker who moved too slowly as an example to the others. Ghost Rider didn't announce himself. He simply appeared in the center of the factory floor, wreathed in hellfire, and began his work. The droids died first. They always did. They were obstacles, nothing more, things to be removed before the real judgment began. His chain scythed through their ranks, hellfire melting circuits and plasteel alike. The workers screamed and fled as the factory erupted into chaos. Then he turned to the overseers. The first Neimoidian tried to run. The chain caught his ankle and dragged him back, burning through his flesh as it went. Ghost Rider lifted him by the throat and stared into his eyes. "Show me your sins." The Neimoidian had beaten workers to death for sport, had selected which children would be separated from their parents, had laughed at their screams. The Penance Stare burned through his soul in seconds. Ghost Rider dropped the husk and moved to the next one, and the next, and the next. By the time Anakin and Ahsoka arrived, 6 overseers lay catatonic on the factory floor, and Ghost Rider was holding a 7th, a Skakoan whose pressure suit hissed and sparked where the hellfire touched it. "Johnny!" Anakin shouted. "Johnny, stop!" Ghost Rider turned. The skull regarded Anakin with those empty, flaming sockets, and for a moment, the young Jedi felt the weight of that gaze, the spirit assessing him, measuring his guilt, deciding if he too deserved judgment. Then the flames flickered, and Johnny Blaze's voice emerged from the skeletal jaw. "This one ordered the execution of 37 workers yesterday. Men, women, children. They were too sick to meet their quotas. So he had them shot and dumped in a pit outside the city. Then he'll face justice, Republic justice, a trial. A trial." The word dripped with contempt. "He'll hire lawyers, call in favors, claim he was following orders. And in the end, he'll walk free, because the Republic needs the Techno-Union's resources and dead Twi'leks don't matter as much as the war effort. Anakin wanted to argue, wanted to defend the system he fought for, the justice he believed in, but he couldn't, because Johnny was right. He'd seen it happen before. War criminals released because they had strategic value. Atrocities swept under the rug because prosecuting them would be politically inconvenient. The Republic talked about justice, but when it conflicted with winning the war, justice lost every time. "Please," the Skakoan whimpered. "Please, I was only following orders." Ghost Rider's grip tightened. Everyone's always following orders. The droid armies follow orders. The clone soldiers follow orders. And somehow, millions die and nobody's responsible. "Johnny?" Anakin stepped forward slowly, hands raised. "I understand. I do. But if you execute him like this, without a trial, without due process, you're not justice. You're just another killer. Another thing that takes lives because it can. I am justice. I'm the only justice some of these people will ever see. Then be better than this." Anakin was close now, close enough to feel the heat of the hellfire. "You told me I had to choose what I was going to be, the monster or the man. Well, so do you. Every time you do this, every time you judge and execute without giving anyone a chance to be better, you choose the monster." The skull stared at him. The flames crackled and roared. Then slowly, Ghost Rider lowered the Skakoan to the ground. The creature collapsed, gasping, pressure suit damaged but intact. "Take him," Johnny's voice said. "Give him your trial, your justice." The flames began to recede, the skull becoming flesh. "But when he walks free, and he will walk free, remember this moment. Remember that I gave you a chance to prove me wrong." The transformation completed. Johnny Blaze stood in the ruins of the factory, surrounded by catatonic bodies and traumatized workers, looking more tired than any human being should. "I need to get out of here," he said quietly. "The spirit, there's too much guilt, too much sin. If I stay, He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. They found a quiet space in the factory's administrative section, an office that had belonged to one of the overseers, now empty. Johnny sat on a desk, head in his hands, while Anakin and Ahsoka watched from the doorway. "It's getting stronger," Johnny said without looking up. "Every time I transform, every time I punish someone, it gets stronger. This galaxy, there's so much evil here, so much suffering. The spirit has never had a feast like this, and it's hungry. It's always hungry." "Then don't transform," Ahsoka offered. "Stay human. Control it." "I can't. People are dying. People are being tortured and murdered and enslaved, and I have the power to stop it. How do I not use that power?" Johnny laughed bitterly. "That's the trap, kid. That's how it gets you. It makes you need it, makes you depend on it to do the right thing, and every time you give in, it takes a little more." Anakin stepped into the room. "The factory workers, are they? They're fine. The spirit doesn't punish innocence. It can tell the difference." "Can it?" "Always?" Johnny looked up and his eyes were haunted. "It thinks it can, but sometimes the line isn't clear. Sometimes people do bad things for good reasons, or good things that lead to bad outcomes. The spirit doesn't care about context. It sees sin and it burns it, black and white, no gray. The galaxy is nothing but gray." "I know, that's the problem." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, clone troopers were evacuating the workers, calling in medical support, processing the catatonic overseers as prisoners, the system grinding forward, doing its best. Back on Christophsis, Anakin said, "You told me you saw my future. Fire everywhere, me at the center of it." "I did. Is that certain? Is that fate?" Johnny shook his head slowly. "The spirit sees guilt, past, present, and potential. What you're capable of. What you might do if you keep going the way you're going. But the future isn't written. I've seen that much. People change. People choose differently than the darkness expects. Then I can stop it. Whatever I saw, I can choose not to become that. Maybe, if you're strong enough. If you're honest enough with yourself about what's pushing you toward it." Johnny stood, facing Anakin directly. "But that's the hardest part. Looking at your own darkness and admitting it's there. Most people can't do it. They make excuses, tell themselves they're justified, that the ends justify the means, and by the time they realize what they've become, it's too late." Anakin felt Ahsoka's eyes on him, his Padawan looking at him with concern and confusion, not understanding the full weight of what they were discussing. He hoped she never would. "We should get back to the advance," Anakin said. "Tambor's still in the Citadel. The mission isn't finished." "No." Johnny moved toward the door. "It isn't. And when we find him, when we find the one responsible for all of this, you're going to have to make a choice, Skywalker. Your justice or mine." "And if I choose yours?" Johnny's smile was grim. "Then maybe there's hope for you after all." 3 hours later, Republic forces breached the Citadel's outer defenses. The battle for Lesu had reached its final stage. But as Anakin led his troops through the burning streets, he received a transmission that stopped him cold. "General Skywalker." Admiral Yullen's voice was tense. "We've intercepted Separatist communications from the Citadel. Wat Tambor has received reinforcements." "Reinforcements? We control the airspace. Nothing could have—" "It's not troops, General. It's a single ship. A munificent-class frigate that punched through our lines during the initial assault. It's been hiding on the surface. One frigate isn't going to change anything. The frigate isn't the reinforcement, sir. The passenger is." Yullen paused. "General Grievous has arrived on Ryloth, and our intelligence suggests he's there specifically to deal with the Ghost Rider." Anakin looked at Johnny, who had heard the transmission. The spirit flickered behind the man's eyes, eager, hungry, a soul collector versus a being with no soul. This was going to be interesting. General Grievous had been designed for one purpose: to kill Jedi. His body was a weapon. Duranium bones, electro-driven muscles, reflexes faster than any organic being. His training came from Count Dooku himself, Makashi bladework refined into something brutal and efficient. He had murdered dozens of Jedi Knights and collected their lightsabers as trophies, each one a testament to his superiority over the Order's so-called Guardians of Peace. But the creature that had appeared on Christophsis was not a Jedi. Grievous had studied the recordings. He'd watched the burning skeleton tear through an entire armored division without slowing. He'd seen the chains slice through durasteel like paper, the hellfire that consumed everything it touched. And he'd seen the Penance Stare, that horrible moment when the creature looked into its victim's eyes and destroyed them from the inside out. It was, Grievous had to admit, impressive. But it was not invincible. Nothing was invincible. The creature had a human host, which meant it had human weaknesses. And more importantly, it relied on the Penance Stare to defeat its most dangerous opponents, a weapon that required eye contact that targeted guilt. Grievous had no eyes, only photoreceptors, and guilt Guilt was for the weak. Grievous felt nothing for the Jedi he'd slaughtered, the worlds he'd burned, the billions who had died under Separatist guns. He was a weapon. Weapons did not feel guilt. The creature could not hurt him, which meant he could destroy it. The citadel of Lesu sat atop a massive plasma bridge, the only access point to the natural rock formation that housed Ryloth's seat of government. Wat Tambor had fortified it extensively, turning the ancient Twi'lek structure into a fortress bristling with anti-aircraft guns, droid patrols, and ray-shielded choke points. It was designed to withstand a siege. It was not designed for what came next. The hell cycle hit the plasma bridge at 300 kilometers per hour, leaving a trail of fire that burned through the magnetic containment field and sent arcs of energy cascading into the chasm below. Battle droids opened fire from defensive positions along the bridge, but they might as well have been throwing stones at a star. Ghost Rider's chains swept through their ranks, hellfire consuming metal and circuits in equal measure. Behind him, Republic forces advanced. Clone troopers in ATTEs laid down covering fire while LAT gunships screamed overhead, and at the head of the assault, Anakin Skywalker's starfighter led a squadron towards the Citadel's upper defenses. "Johnny's clearing the bridge," Ahsoka reported from Anakin's wing. "He's almost at the main gate." "Then we'd better keep up. All units concentrate fire on the anti-aircraft emplacements. We need to..." The Munificent-class frigate rose from behind the Citadel like a predator emerging from its lair. It had been hiding in the canyon system behind Lesu, powered down to avoid detection. Now it climbed into the sky, guns already tracking the Republic assault force. Turbo laser batteries opened up, filling the air with green death. "Evasive action!" Anakin hauled his fighter into a roll as a blast screamed past his cockpit. "All units, we've got a capital ship. Someone get the Resolute on the line." "General!" Rex's voice cut through the chaos, tight with urgency. "Ghost Rider just stopped. Middle of the bridge. He's not moving." Anakin craned his neck, looking down through the canopy. Rex was right. The hell cycle sat motionless at the bridge's midpoint, the burning skeleton astride it staring up at the frigate. No, not at the frigate. At the figure descending from its belly, riding a platform toward the bridge below. Grievous. Johnny felt the creature's approach before he saw it. The spirit of vengeance was a predator, attuned to guilt and sin the way a shark was attuned to blood. It could sense the weight of transgression in any living being, measure the pain they'd caused, calculate the punishment they deserved. But the thing descending toward him was different. There was no guilt, no sin, no weight of conscience or whisper of remorse, just nothing. A void where a soul should be. "What are you?" the spirit wondered. The platform touched down on the bridge 50 meters away. The creature that stepped off was massive, hunched and skeletal, wrapped in a cloak that billowed in the wind from the plasma chasm. Its face was a mask of bone-white metal, and its eyes, it had no eyes, just photoreceptors that glowed with cold yellow light. "So," the creature rasped, its voice a mechanical growl, "you are the one they call Ghost Rider." Johnny felt the transformation pulling at him, the spirit eager to face this new threat, but he held it back, for now. "And you're Grievous, the Jedi killer. Killer of Jedi, killer of clones, killer of anyone who stands against the Separatist cause." Grievous stepped forward and his cloak parted to reveal arms, 4 of them, each hand holding a lightsaber hilt. "I have studied your recordings, creature. Impressive, but ultimately limited. Limited. Your power, this Penance Stare, It requires you to look into your victim's eyes, to show them their sins. Grievous's vocabulator produced something approximating a laugh. I have no eyes, Ghost Rider, only sensors, and I have no sins, only victories. The spirit surged forward and Johnny let it come. Hellfire erupted across his body, flesh becoming bone, leather becoming chains. The transformation was instant, violent, and the temperature on the bridge spiked as the full power of the spirit of vengeance manifested. Everyone has sins, Ghost Rider said, his voice echoing with infernal resonance. Everyone has guilt. You cannot hide from what you are. I am a weapon. Weapons do not feel guilt. Grievous ignited his lightsabers, 4 blades, 2 blue and 2 green, trophies from murdered Jedi. They spun in his hands, creating a defensive wall of plasma. And weapons do not fear you, he attacked. Anakin had seen Grievous fight before. The cyborg general was fast, faster than anything that size had any right to be, and his 4-armed fighting style was designed to overwhelm Jedi who relied on precognition and blade-to-blade combat. He would press relentlessly, spinning his sabers in unpredictable patterns until his opponent made a mistake. Then he would kill them. But Ghost Rider didn't fight like a Jedi. The first exchange was blinding. Grievous's 4 sabers converged on the burning skeleton from every angle, a storm of plasma that should have carved it to pieces. Ghost Rider's chain met them and held. The hellfire-infused links caught the lightsaber blades and stopped them cold, supernatural metal refusing to yield to plasma that could cut through anything else in the galaxy. Grievous pressed forward, but Ghost Rider didn't retreat. He stood his ground, chain whipping in patterns that matched the cyborg's assault. And when an opening appeared, he took it. The chain wrapped around Grievous's lower left arm and pulled. The limb tore free with a shriek of rending metal. Grievous stumbled and Ghost Rider pressed the advantage, hellfire erupting from his free hand, engulfing the general in flames that should have melted him to slag. Grievous burst through the fire, cloak burning away, chassis scorched but intact. His remaining 3 arms pressed the attack, sabers spinning faster now, driven by what might have been rage in an organic being. You cannot kill me, Grievous snarled. I am more machine than alive. Your fire means nothing. Fire is the least of what I am. Ghost Rider caught another saber strike with his bare hand. The blade sank into his palm and stopped, unable to cut through the bone, and yanked Grievous forward. His other hand closed around the general's throat, lifting the massive cyborg off the ground like he weighed nothing. The skull's empty sockets stared into Grievous's photoreceptors. Let's find out if you really feel nothing. The Penance Stare ignited. The world went white. Grievous had expected nothing. He had expected his own certainty to be vindicated, that his mechanical nature and lack of conscience would render the creature's greatest weapon useless. He was wrong. The Penance Stare didn't search for guilt. It searched for pain. Pain caused, pain inflicted, suffering created. And Grievous had created suffering beyond measure. He saw the Jedi he'd killed, not as trophies, but as people, felt their terror, their agony, the moment when they realized they were going to die. He experienced their deaths from the inside, every cut and stab and crushing blow. He saw the worlds he'd burned, felt the civilians screaming as their homes collapsed around them, the children crying for parents who would never come. He saw the clones he'd slaughtered, identical faces twisted in pain, dying for a republic that had created them as disposable soldiers. All of it, every death, every moment of suffering, experienced simultaneously, crammed into his consciousness in a single endless instant. Grievous screamed. Johnny felt the cyborg's resistance crumble. Whatever Grievous had told himself about being a weapon, about feeling nothing, it was a lie. The organic parts of him, the brain, the eyes, the remnants of the Kaleesh warrior he'd once been, remembered everything, felt everything, and now he was experiencing it all at once. Finish him, the spirit demanded. Burn the soul from what remains of his body. End him. Johnny wanted to. God help him, he wanted to. This creature had murdered thousands, Jedi, clones, civilians. He deserved damnation, deserved to burn forever. But something stopped him. Anakin's words echoed in his memory. If you execute him like this, without giving anyone a chance to be better, you're not justice. You're just another killer. Grievous was a monster, but he was also a victim, transformed against his will into a weapon by the Separatists, his body stripped away until only rage remained. He had made choices that damned him, yes, but he had not been given many choices to begin with. Did that excuse what he'd done? No. Did it mean he deserved a chance, even the smallest chance, to choose differently? Johnny didn't know. He honestly didn't know. But he released the stare. Grievous collapsed to the bridge, his remaining limbs twitching, his vocabulator producing sounds that might have been screams or sobs. The cyborg general who had terrorized the Republic for 2 years lay broken at Ghost Rider's feet, undone not by fire or chains, but by the weight of his own sins. You feel it now, Ghost Rider said. Everything you've done, everything you are, that will never leave you, Grievous. Every time you close your eyes, you'll see their faces, hear their screams, and you'll know, truly know, what you've become. He turned away from the fallen general, leaving him on the bridge for the Republic forces to collect. Behind him, Grievous wept. Wat Tambor died badly. Johnny didn't give him a choice, didn't hesitate or question or wonder about redemption. The Techno-Union foreman had enslaved and murdered thousands of Twi'leks for profit. He had ordered executions, authorized torture, watched children die, and calculated the cost-benefit ratio of their labor. The Penance Stare hit him like a hammer from God. When Ghost Rider walked out of the Citadel, Tambor's body was still technically alive, heart beating, lungs breathing, but everything that had made him a person was gone, burned away, destroyed so completely that not even the Force could find a trace of it. The Republic forces didn't try to stop him. They just watched as the burning skeleton descended the Citadel steps, mounted the Hell Cycle, and rode away into the Ryloth night. Anakin found Johnny 3 hours later, sitting on a cliff overlooking one of the planet's canyons. He was human again, staring at his hands. Tambor, Anakin asked, gone. And Grievous, alive, suffering, probably wishing he wasn't. Johnny's voice was hollow. I showed him what he was. I don't know if it will change anything. Probably not. But he felt it. He knows now. Anakin sat beside him, looking out at the canyon. The sun was setting, painting the rocks in shades of orange and red. The Council is going to want to know what happened in that citadel, Anakin said. Tell them the truth. Tambor got what he deserved. And Grievous? Tell them he got what he needed. Johnny finally looked at Anakin. There's a difference, you know. What people deserve and what they need. The Spirit doesn't care about the difference, it just punishes. But I'm not just the Spirit, I'm also Johnny Blaze. And Johnny Blaze knows that sometimes punishment isn't enough. Then what is? I don't know, maybe nothing. Maybe some people are too far gone to save. Johnny's jaw tightened. But I have to believe that's not true. I have to believe people can change, because if they can't... He held up his hands, and for just a moment, flames danced across his fingers. If they can't, then what's the point? Why give them a chance to feel their guilt if they can't do anything with it? Anakin didn't have an answer. He wasn't sure there was one. But as he sat with Johnny Blaze on that cliff, watching the sun set over a world that had been liberated through fire and vengeance, he found himself thinking about his own guilt, his own sins, the future that the Spirit had shown him, fire everywhere, and him at the center of it. You still have a choice, Johnny had told him. You can still choose differently. Anakin looked at his own hands, flesh and metal, life and machine, and wondered if that was true. He hoped it was. He desperately hoped it was. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Grievous defeated, Wat Tambor destroyed, Ryloth liberated by Republic forces, and at the center of it all, a burning specter that answered to no army, no government, no creed. The HoloNet called him the Spirit of Vengeance, the demon of Christophsis, the rider of hellfire. Separatist commanders scrambled to understand the threat. Republic strategists debated how to harness it. And in the shadows of the galaxy, those who profited from war began to realize that their sins had consequences. Johnny Blaze felt them all. Every corrupt senator skimming credits from refugee relief funds. Every arms dealer selling weapons to both sides. Every slaver operating in the Outer Rim, while the Republic looked away because they needed the trade routes. Every crime lord and war profiteer and collaborator who had grown fat on the suffering of others. He felt their guilt like heat signatures in the dark, beacons calling the Spirit to judgment. So many, the Spirit whispered, so many who deserve to burn. Not yet, Johnny muttered, standing at the viewport of the Resolute as the cruiser traveled through hyperspace. We pick our targets, we don't just... Why not? They are guilty, all of them. Why should any escape? Because I'm not just your weapon. I'm the one who decides when and how you're used. You cannot hold me back forever, Johnny Blaze. The hunger grows. The sin in this galaxy is endless, and I will have my due. Johnny closed his eyes, fighting the pressure behind them. The Spirit was right. It was getting harder to control. Every transformation fed it, made it stronger, made its voice louder in his mind. On Earth, he'd had respite, periods of relative quiet where the Spirit could rest, where Johnny could be just a man. Here, there was no respite. The Clone Wars generated sin on an industrial scale, billions dead, worlds burning, atrocities committed hourly by both sides. The Spirit was gorging itself, and each meal only made it hungrier for the next. If Johnny didn't find a way to manage it, to direct it, it would consume him entirely. And then God help everyone. You want to do what? Admiral Yulin stared at Anakin like he'd suggested flying into a sun. A targeted strike on Hutt space, Anakin repeated, standing at the holotable in the Resolute's war room. Specifically the slave markets on Zygerria and the spice operations on Nal Hutta. Ghost Rider has identified high-value targets, crime lords who've been supplying the Separatists and profiting from the war. Those systems are neutral. Attacking them would be an act of war against parties we're not currently at war with. The Hutts aren't neutral, they're opportunists. They sell weapons to the Separatists, launder credits for Dooku's war chest, and traffic sentient beings for labor and worse. The only reason we haven't moved against them is because the Senate doesn't want to open another front. And the Senate is correct. Yulin folded his arms. We're already stretched thin across the galaxy. We can't afford to antagonize the Hutts. We can't afford to let them keep operating either. Anakin pulled up a holographic display showing trade routes and financial flows. Look at this. Half the Separatist army's funding comes through Hutt banks. Their slave labor builds droid factories. Their spice operations keep Separatist soldiers fighting when they should be collapsing from exhaustion. We're not just ignoring crime. We're letting the enemy's supply chain operate untouched because we're afraid of the political fallout. There are diplomatic considerations. There are slaves, Admiral, living beings sold like property while we debate considerations. The words came out harder than Anakin intended. He saw Yulin's expression shift. The Admiral wasn't unsympathetic, but he was also a military officer who understood chains of command and political realities. I appreciate your passion, General Skywalker, but this operation would require Council approval, Senate authorization. I'm not asking for approval. Silence fell over the war room. Officers exchanged glances. I'm telling you what's going to happen, Anakin continued. Ghost Rider is going to Hutt space. He's going to punish the guilty. The only question is whether Republic forces are there to handle the aftermath, to liberate the slaves, secure the evidence, and make sure the Hutts can't rebuild, or whether we let him do it alone and lose any chance to control the outcome. Yulin's jaw tightened. You're asking me to commit forces to an unauthorized operation. I'm asking you to help me save lives. Everything else is politics. They compromised. Anakin would take a small strike team, Ahsoka, Rex, a platoon of the 501st, along with Ghost Rider. They would hit a single target, Gardulla, the Hutt's palace on Tatooine, one of the largest slave-trading operations in the Outer Rim. If successful, they would gather evidence of Gardulla's Separatist connections and present it to the Senate as justification for a broader campaign. If unsuccessful, Anakin would bear full responsibility for the unauthorized action. This is a bad idea, Obi-Wan said over hologram as Anakin prepared his team. The Council won't sanction this. If it goes wrong, then it goes wrong, and I face the consequences. But I'm not going to sit here while people are bought and sold, Obi-Wan. I can't. This isn't just about the slaves, is it? Obi-Wan's eyes were knowing, gentle. This is about your mother. Anakin's hand clenched at his side. Shmi Skywalker had been a slave on Tatooine, had died a slave, tortured by Tusken Raiders while Anakin was too far away to save her. He'd slaughtered the entire tribe for what they'd done, men, women, children, and told himself it was justice. The Spirit had shown him that sin, had made him feel every death. Maybe it is, Anakin admitted. Maybe I need to go back there and do something right this time. Save people instead of... He stopped. It doesn't matter why. What matters is that it needs to be done. And Ghost Rider, can you trust him? Anakin looked across the hangar where Johnny Blaze stood beside the Hell Cycle, talking quietly with Ahsoka. The young Togruta was asking questions, curious as always, and Johnny was answering with a patience that surprised Anakin. He treated her like a person, not a soldier, not a weapon, not a child to be protected, just a person trying to understand something beyond her experience. I don't know if I trust him, Anakin said, but I understand him, and right now, that's enough. Tatooine hadn't changed. The twin suns still beat down on endless desert. Moisture farmers still struggle to survive on the edge of civilization. And in the cities, Mos Espa, Mos Eisley, and a dozen smaller settlements, slaves still wore their chains while the galaxy looked away. Anakin felt it the moment the shuttle touched down. The weight of this world. The memories. "I'll come back and free you, Mom, I promise." He'd failed that promise. He'd left her here and she'd died in agony while he trained to become a Jedi. All his power, all his destiny, and he hadn't been able to save one woman. "General?" Rex's voice was careful. "Are you all right?" "Fine." Anakin sealed his feelings away, pushed them down into the dark place where he kept everything he couldn't afford to feel. "Let's move." Gardulla's palace sat on the outskirts of Mos Espa, a sprawling complex of sandstone and duracrete, protected by mercenary guards and Gamorrean enforcers. Intelligence suggested over 300 slaves were held on the premises at any given time, waiting to be sold to buyers across the Outer Rim. The plan was simple. Ahsoka would lead Rex and the clones through the servant entrance, securing the slave quarters and preparing evacuation. Anakin would hit the main gate, drawing the guards' attention, and Ghost Rider would go straight for Gardulla. "Remember," Anakin said as they crouched behind a dune, observing the palace, "we need evidence, financial records, communication logs, anything that proves she's been working with the Separatists. If we can't justify this to the Senate—" "I know." Johnny's voice was flat, his eyes fixed on the palace. "Evidence first, then judgment." "Judgment within reason. We're not executing anyone who—" "The slaves in there." Johnny cut him off. "Some of them are children. I can feel them, scared, hurting, hoping someone will come. Every minute we wait is another minute they suffer." Anakin looked at the man, at the rigid set of his shoulders, the barely contained fury in his eyes, and saw something familiar, the same rage he felt when he thought about his mother, the same desperate need to do something, anything to make the pain stop. "Then let's not wait anymore," Anakin said. "Go." Johnny transformed. The explosion of hellfire was visible from kilometers away. The spirit of vengeance erupted from Johnny Blaze like a star being born, flames engulfing flesh, skull emerging from fire, the hell cycle roaring to life beneath him. Ghost Rider shot toward the palace like a missile, and the desert itself seemed to recoil from his passing. Anakin ignited his lightsaber and charged after him. The guards never had a chance. Ghost Rider hit the main gate and kept going, through it, not around it, chains scything through durasteel and flesh alike. Mercenaries opened fire, blasters and disruptors converging on the burning skeleton, but the bolts passed through him like he wasn't there. His chain swept through their ranks, hellfire consuming everything it touched. Anakin followed in his wake, cutting down stragglers, but there wasn't much left to do. Ghost Rider was a force of nature, unstoppable and absolute. By the time they reached the palace's inner sanctum, the defenders had broken. Those who hadn't been killed were fleeing into the desert, wanting no part of whatever demon had descended on their master's house. Gardulla the Hutt was waiting for them. The massive slug reclined on a repulsor dais in her throne room, surrounded by the trappings of her wealth, silks, jewels, slaves in chains. She watched Ghost Rider approach with an expression that might have been fear or might have been calculation. "Spirit," she said in Huttis, her voice a deep rumble. "I know what you are, what you do, but you should know, I have protection, allies who will not take kindly to my death. You have nothing." Ghost Rider's voice filled the room, echoing off stone walls. "Your guards are broken, your allies are far away, and your sins—" He stepped closer, and Gardulla's slaves scrambled back in terror. Your sins are many." "Wait!" Anakin moved between them, lightsaber raised, not threatening, just present. "We need the evidence first. The financial records, the Separatist communications." "You'll find them in the data vault," Gardulla said quickly. Too quickly. "Everything is there. Take it. Take all of it. Just spare you?" Ghost Rider laughed, a horrible sound, like flames crackling in a furnace. "How many have begged you for mercy, Gardulla? How many slaves have knelt where I stand and pleaded for their lives, their families, their children?" The Hutt's eyes flickered. For all her bravado, she was afraid, terrified of the thing standing before her, knowing that no amount of credits or connections could save her now. "Please," she whispered. Ghost Rider reached for her, and Anakin stepped fully between them. "No." The skull turned to face him, empty sockets blazing with hellfire, the spirit's fury radiating like heat from a sun. "Move aside, Skywalker. Not until we have what we came for. You promised. Evidence first, then judgment." "She is guilty. You know this. Feel it, even without my power. She has enslaved thousands, sold children to monsters, worked human beings to death in her mines, and laughed while counting her credits. There is no court that will punish her, no justice that will touch her. Only me." "Then let me get the evidence first. Let me prove what she's done so the Senate can't ignore it. Let me make this matter beyond just one Hutt." Ghost Rider stared at him for a long moment. The hellfire crackled and roared, the spirit's hunger almost palpable. Then, slowly, the flames banked. "Get your evidence, Jedi. But when you're done..." Ghost Rider turned back to Gardulla, who had gone pale with terror. "She's mine." Ahsoka found the slave quarters in the palace's lower levels. 347 beings of various species shackled and branded and waiting to be sold. Some were laborers, some were servants, some were children earmarked for purposes that made her stomach turn. She freed them all. "Rex, get these people to the shuttles," she ordered, cutting through a chain with her lightsaber. "We need to move fast. Once word gets out about what's happening here, every bounty hunter on Tatooine is going to come looking for a payday." "Copy that, Commander." Rex started organizing the evacuation, his men moving with professional efficiency despite the chaos. Ahsoka helped a young Twi'lek girl to her feet, maybe 8 years old, her leku scarred from discipline collars. "It's okay," Ahsoka said gently. "You're safe now. We're going to get you out of here." The girl looked up at her with eyes that had seen too much. "The burning man," she whispered. "He came for us." "Yes, he came for you." "Is he a demon?" Ahsoka hesitated. She'd asked herself the same question since Christophsis. Ghost Rider looked like something from a nightmare, a burning skeleton riding a machine made of fire. His power came from a place of darkness, and his purpose was punishment without mercy. But he'd also saved lives, freed slaves, struck down those who preyed on the innocent. Was that a demon's work? "I don't know what he is," Ahsoka admitted, "but I know he's on our side, and right now, that's enough." They found the evidence. Financial records showing payments from Gardulla to Separatist front companies, communications with Dooku's aides arranging arms shipments, transaction logs for slaves sold to techno-union factories. Enough to prove beyond any doubt that the Hutts were active participants in the war, not neutral parties, but enemies of the Republic in everything but name. Anakin transmitted the data to Coruscant and waited. The response came within the hour. The Jedi Council was furious. The Senate was in an uproar. Chancellor Palpatine himself issued a statement condemning the unauthorized action while simultaneously announcing a formal investigation into Hutt war crimes. It was exactly what Anakin had hoped for, and then Ghost Rider took his payment. Gardulla's screams echoed through the palace as the Penance Stare ignited. She experienced every death she'd caused, every moment of suffering she'd inflicted, every life destroyed by her greed. Centuries of sin compressed into a single endless instant. When it ended, the Hutt was still alive, technically, but like Tambor, like the Nemoidian on Christophsis, the person she'd been was gone. Only a shell remained, hollow and empty, a monument to consequences. Johnny Blaze walked out of the throne room without looking back. "You did good today." Anakin found Johnny outside the palace, watching the freed slaves board Republic shuttles. The man had transformed back to human, and he looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, shoulders slumped with weariness. "Did I?" Johnny's voice was hollow. 347 people freed, one crime lord destroyed, and tomorrow there'll be another Gardulla, and another after that. The galaxy is full of them. So we keep fighting, keep freeing, keep punishing. For how long? Until every guilty person in the galaxy is ash? Johnny turned to face him. That's what the Spirit wants. That's the end game, complete and total judgment. Burn it all down and start over. Is that what you want? I don't know anymore. Johnny looked at his hands. Every time I let it out, it gets stronger. Every time I punish someone, it's harder to stop. And in a galaxy like this, with so much sin, so much guilt, the Spirit is never satisfied. It always wants more. Anakin was quiet for a moment. Then, on Tatooine when I was a kid, there was a slave who worked in the markets. Old woman named Jira. She used to give me pallies when I did jobs for her. These little fruits not worth anything, but she'd save them for me because she knew I liked them. He paused. She's still here, still alive, last I heard, still a slave. Johnny looked at him. 347 people freed today, Anakin said. And yeah, tomorrow there'll be more Gardullas, but there'll also be more people like Jira, people who can be saved, who deserve to be saved. That's why we keep fighting, not to punish everyone who's guilty, but to protect everyone who's innocent. And the guilty? Anakin's jaw tightened. They get what they deserve, but they don't get to be the point. Johnny considered this for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. The point is the slaves on those shuttles. The point is always the people we save. Anakin put a hand on Johnny's shoulder. That's something to hold on to. When the Spirit wants more, when it tells you to burn everything down, remember the people you saved. Remember that they matter more than the ones you punished. Johnny looked back at the shuttles, at the freed slaves streaming toward a better life. Yeah, he said quietly. I'll try to remember that. Count Dooku received the intelligence report in his meditation chamber aboard the Invisible Hand, the rhythmic hum of the ship's engines, a backdrop to his contemplation. The holographic images showed the aftermath of Ghost Rider's assault on Tatooine, Gardulla's palace in ruins, 300 slaves liberated, the Hutt herself reduced to a catatonic shell. Troubling, but also opportune. The creature grows bolder, Dooku murmured, stroking his beard. First Christophsis, then Ryloth, now Hutt space. It strikes without warning and answers to no authority. A threat to our operations, the tactical droid beside him observed. 17 Separatist officers have been neutralized by the entity. Production at 3 droid factories has been disrupted. Our Hutt financial networks are in disarray. Yes, but consider the larger picture. Dooku waved a hand, and the hologram shifted to show a galaxy map, Republic territory, Separatist holdings, and the scattered points where Ghost Rider had appeared. The creature is not loyal to the Republic. It attacks anyone it deems guilty. It has already judged Republic forces on Ryloth for war crimes. It operates outside their chain of command. You believe it can be turned against them? I believe it can be aimed. Dooku's smile was thin, calculating. The creature, this spirit of vengeance, punishes the guilty. It sees sin and burns it. A blunt instrument, perhaps, but a powerful one. He stood, clasping his hands behind his back. And what greater sin exists in this galaxy than the one at the heart of the Republic itself? The tactical droid processed this. You refer to the Sith conspiracy. I refer to the truth. Dooku turned to face the viewport, watching the stars streak past in hyperspace. The Jedi believe themselves righteous, but they serve a government riddled with corruption. They fight for a republic that has already fallen. They simply don't know it yet. And the one who orchestrates it all sits in the Chancellor's office, pulling strings, manipulating both sides of this war for his own ends. Lord Sidious, my master. The word carried complex weight, respect, resentment, calculation. He believes himself untouchable, hidden in plain sight, his true nature concealed even from the Jedi. But this Ghost Rider, it sees guilt, senses sin. If it were to look upon Palpatine, truly look, what would it find? The tactical droid's photoreceptors flickered. You would betray your master. I would remove an obstacle. Dooku's voice was cold, precise. Sidious intends to rule the galaxy alone. The rule of 2 demands that I eventually be discarded, replaced by a younger, more malleable apprentice. I have always known this. But if the spirit of vengeance were to destroy him before he could complete his plans, you would assume control. I would bring order, true order, not the chaos Sidious cultivates. Dooku turned back to the hologram, studying Ghost Rider's image, the burning skull, the chains, the infernal cycle. The question is how to guide the creature toward its target. It cannot be commanded, cannot be threatened, but it can be informed. You intend to reveal Sidious's identity? I intend to give the spirit of vengeance something it cannot resist. Dooku's smile widened. The truth about who is really responsible for this war. The message arrived on a secure channel, one that shouldn't have existed, that bypassed Republic encryption entirely. Anakin found it waiting in his personal comms when he returned to the Resolute from Tatooine. General Skywalker, the creature you harbor has the power to end this war, not through violence but through revelation. The true enemy is not the Separatists. It is the one who created us both. Come to coordinates attached. Come alone. Bring the rider. Learn what the Jedi Council will never tell you. Dooku Anakin stared at the message for a long time. It was obviously a trap. Dooku was the enemy, the leader of the Separatist forces, the fallen Jedi who had betrayed the Order, the Sith Lord who served as Sidious's apprentice. Nothing he said could be trusted, and yet, the one who created us both. Anakin thought about the war, 2 years of fighting, millions dead and no end in sight. The Separatists kept producing droids. The Republic kept producing clones. Both sides ground themselves against each other while the galaxy burned. Who benefited from that? Not the Republic, not the Separatists, Not the Jedi or the clones or the civilians caught in the crossfire. Someone else? Someone orchestrating the whole thing from the shadows. Anakin had felt it, that nagging sense that something was wrong, that the war didn't make sense, that they were all being played. But whenever he tried to focus on it, the feeling slipped away, like something was preventing him from seeing clearly. Or someone. He found Johnny in the Resolute's training room, working through a series of combat forms with his chain. Even in human form, the weapon responded to him, flowing through patterns that seemed half meditation, half preparation for violence. "We need to talk," Anakin said. Johnny caught the chain, coiling it around his arm. "About what?" "About ending the war." They met in secret, Anakin, Johnny, and Ahsoka, who refused to be left behind despite Anakin's objections. The shuttle flew to the coordinates Dooku had provided, a moon in neutral space, uninhabited, unremarkable except for the single structure rising from its barren surface. A tower, ancient, weathered, built from stone that predated the Republic by millennia. "I've got a bad feeling about this," Ahsoka murmured as they landed. "You're not wrong." Anakin's hand rested on his lightsaber. "But if there's even a chance Dooku knows something that could end this, we have to hear it. He's a Sith. Everything he says is a lie. The best lies have truth in them. That's what makes them effective." Anakin started toward the tower. "Stay alert. And Johnny—" "I know." Johnny's voice was flat. "If he's guilty, he burns. If he's guilty and this isn't a trap, we need information first." "I remember." They entered the tower. Dooku waited in a chamber at its peak, a circular room open to the stars, filled with ancient artifacts and Sith holocrons. He wore his customary elegance, hands clasped before him, expression mild, as if welcoming guests to a dinner party. General Skywalker, young Tano. His eyes moved to Johnny, and something flickered there, interest, calculation, and the spirit of vengeance. "I'm honored." "Skip the pleasantries," Anakin's lightsaber ignited, blue blade humming. "Why are we here?" "Because I'm going to give you what you need to end this war." Dooku didn't move, didn't reach for his own weapon. The truth about who started it, who controls it, who has been manipulating the Republic and the Separatists from the very beginning. "And why would you do that?" "Because it serves my interests." Dooku's smile was thin. "The Sith do not share power, Skywalker. My master intends to dispose of me once his plans reach fruition. I would prefer to dispose of him first. And the creature you've brought," his gaze fixed on Johnny, "is perhaps the only being in the galaxy capable of accomplishing that." Johnny stepped forward. His eyes were human, but something else looked out through them. The spirit, watching, assessing. "Who is your master?" "Someone you've met, someone you trust." Dooku's voice was soft, almost gentle. "Someone who has been lying to the entire galaxy since before the war began." A name. Chancellor Palpatine. Silence fell over the chamber. Anakin felt the words hit him like a physical blow. Denial, disbelief, then a horrible creeping sense that part of him had always known. Palpatine, the kindly chancellor who had mentored him since childhood, who had praised his abilities, encouraged his ambitions, told him he was special when the Jedi Council treated him with suspicion. He understands things the Jedi don't, about power, about emotion, about what it takes to actually win this war. Anakin's own words, spoken to Johnny just days ago. "You're lying," Ahsoka said, but her voice wavered. "Am I? Consider the facts, young one." The Clone Wars began when a clone army, created in secret, paid for by a dead Jedi, was conveniently discovered just as the Separatist threat emerged. Both sides of this conflict were orchestrated by the same hand: the army that serves the Republic and the droids that oppose it, both created to fight a war that would never end until its architect decided it should. That's insane. The Chancellor is Darth Sidious, the Dark Lord of the Sith, the most powerful practitioner of the dark side in a millennium. Dooku's eyes bored into Anakin. He has been grooming you since you were a child, Skywalker, preparing you to become his new apprentice, to replace me as I was meant to replace others before me. Anakin's lightsaber trembled in his grip. No. Yes. Why do you think he's always supported you, praised you, told you that you deserved more than the Council would give you? He has been cultivating your anger, your fear, your attachment, feeding the darkness in you until you would be ready to embrace it. I don't believe you. Then believe your own senses. Dooku gestured to Johnny. The spirit of vengeance sees guilt, sees sin. Let it look at me, let it judge me, and ask itself one question: am I lying? Johnny moved before Anakin could stop him. He crossed the chamber in 3 strides, grabbing Dooku by the throat and lifting the Sith Lord off the ground. The transformation didn't come, not yet, but it hovered just beneath the surface, hellfire ready to ignite. "Show me," Johnny growled. Dooku met his eyes without flinching, and Johnny looked. The spirit didn't need the Penance Stare to read guilt. It could sense sin like a hound sensed blood. The weight of it, the flavor, the shape. When Johnny looked at Dooku, he saw a lifetime of transgression, murder, betrayal, the corruption of everything the man had once believed in. But beneath all that, wrapped in the darkness like a thorn in flesh, truth. Dooku believed what he was saying, every word. He had watched Palpatine manipulate the Republic for decades, had helped him do it, yes, but always with the knowledge that he was expendable, a tool to be used and discarded, and he hated the man for it. Johnny saw more, visions that bled from Dooku's mind like oil on water. Palpatine in shadow speaking with Separatist leaders. Palpatine in his office smiling as reports of casualties came in. Palpatine standing over Anakin Skywalker, not as mentor but as master. And the young Jedi kneeling before him with yellow eyes and a red blade. Your future, Dooku thought, unless something changes. Johnny released him. Dooku dropped to his feet, straightening his robes with dignity. You saw. I saw. And, Johnny turned to Anakin. The young Jedi's face was pale, his lightsaber still ignited but held loosely, like he'd forgotten it was there. He's telling the truth, Johnny said. About Palpatine, about you, about all of it. Anakin shook his head slowly. It can't. I saw your future, Skywalker. In his mind. What you'll become if Palpatine gets what he wants. Johnny's voice was hard, uncompromising. Fire everywhere, and you at the center of it. That's not just a possibility anymore. That's the plan. That's what the Sith Lord in the Chancellor's office has been building toward since you were 9 years old. Anakin's lightsaber deactivated. His hand dropped to his side. What do I do? He whispered. You have a choice. Dooku's voice was smooth, persuasive. Join me. Together we can destroy Sidious and bring true order to the galaxy. Not his order, mine. A separatist victory that ends the war and establishes a government free of corruption, free of Jedi dogma, free of... No. Everyone turned to Johnny. You want to use me, he said to Dooku. Aim me at your master like a weapon, and let me pull the trigger while you pick up the pieces. But you're not any better than he is. You've slaughtered thousands, started a war that's killed millions, enslaved entire worlds for your order." The hellfire began to rise, flames licking across his shoulders, heat building in the chamber. "You're guilty, Dooku. Maybe not as guilty as Palpatine, but guilty enough." Dooku's hand moved toward his lightsaber. "Don't." The word came from Anakin, quiet, broken, but firm. "You gave us the truth. That's worth something. But if you reach for that weapon, I'll let him take you." The Sith Lord's hand stopped. "Then we're at an impasse," Dooku said. "I've told you who your enemy is. What you do with that information is your concern." "And what do you do? Go back to leading the Separatists? Keep fighting a war you know is pointless?" "I do what I must to survive, as do we all." Dooku inclined his head slightly. "We will meet again, Skywalker, on the battlefield perhaps. Or in the ashes of what's left when this is over. I wonder which of us will still be standing." He stepped back into the shadows, and between one breath and the next, he was gone. They flew back to the Resolute in silence. Ahsoka stared out the viewport, processing what she'd heard. Anakin sat with his head in his hands, unmoving. Johnny flew the shuttle, giving them space. "What do we do?" Ahsoka finally asked. "I don't know." Anakin's voice was hollow. "If Dooku's right, if Palpatine is really—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "He's right." Johnny didn't turn from the controls. "I saw it, felt it. The guilt on Dooku was nothing compared to what's waiting on Coruscant. Your Chancellor is soaked in sin, billions of deaths, an entire galaxy's suffering, and he's not done yet. Then we tell the Council. We tell the Senate." "Tell them what?" "That a Sith Lord told us another Sith Lord is secretly running the Republic. They'll think we've gone crazy, or worse, that we've been turned." Anakin stood, pacing the small cabin. Palpatine has been in power for over a decade. He has allies everywhere, the Senate, the military, the judiciary. If we move against him without proof, "I'm the proof," Johnny finally turned. "You said it yourself. I see guilt. I see sin. Let me look at Palpatine. Let me show everyone what he is." "He'll never let you get that close. He knows what you can do. He must know by now. He'll have defenses, contingencies." "Then we don't give him a choice." Johnny's eyes flickered with flame. "We go to Coruscant. We walk into his office. And we let the Spirit judge him in front of the entire galaxy. And if he's ready for you, if he has some way to stop you." Johnny smiled, thin, hard, mirthless. "Then I guess we'll find out what happens when the Spirit of Vengeance meets the Dark Lord of the Sith." The journey back to Coruscant felt like a funeral march. Anakin spent most of it alone in his quarters, staring at the wall, replaying every conversation he'd ever had with Palpatine, every kind word, every piece of advice, every moment the Chancellor had made him feel valued, understood, special, when the Jedi Council treated him like a problem to be managed. "He understands me. He sees my potential." That's what Anakin had always believed. But now those memories curdled into something darker. Every compliment became manipulation. Every encouragement became grooming. Every private conversation became a step in a plan that led to fire and death, and Anakin kneeling before a Sith Lord with yellow eyes. "Your future." Unless something changes. He wanted to deny it, wanted to believe Dooku was lying, that this was all an elaborate trap to turn him against the Republic. But Johnny had seen the truth. The Spirit of Vengeance didn't lie about guilt, and deep down in the place where Anakin kept the things he couldn't face, he knew He'd always known something was wrong. He just refused to see it. A knock at his door. "Come in." Ahsoka entered, her expression careful. She'd been walking on eggshells around him since they left Dooku's tower, unsure what to say, how to help, whether any words could make a difference. "Master," she hesitated, "we're approaching Coruscant. The Council has requested a briefing on the Tatooine operation." The Council. Anakin laughed bitterly. "What do I tell them, Ahsoka? That the Chancellor, the man who appointed me to report on Jedi activities, is actually a Sith Lord who's been manipulating all of us since before the war started. We could start with Grievous and Tambor, the evidence we gathered. Then..." She trailed off. "Then what?" "Oh, by the way, Masters, Count Dooku told us Palpatine is Darth Sidious, and Johnny confirmed it with his magic guilt vision. They'll have us committed, or worse. They'll think we've fallen to the dark side. So we don't tell them, not yet." Ahsoka moved closer, her voice dropping. "We gather more evidence. We find a way to prove it that doesn't rely on Dooku's word. And in the meantime, Palpatine continues running the war, continues manipulating the Senate, the Jedi, me." Anakin's fist clenched. "How many more die while we build our case? How many die if we move too fast and he escapes, or turns the Republic against us?" Ahsoka's eyes were steady, older than her years. "Master, I know you want to act. I feel the same way. But this isn't a battle we can win with lightsabers. If we're going to bring down the most powerful man in the galaxy, we have to be smart about it." Anakin looked at his Padawan, this young woman who had grown so much during the war, who had seen things no one her age should see, who had maintained her principles when so many others had lost theirs. "When did you become the wise one?" "I learned from the best." A small smile. "When he's not being reckless and impulsive." "I'm never reckless and impulsive. You jumped out of a moving speeder yesterday to catch a Hutt accountant who was trying to escape. That was calculated impulsiveness. The moment of levity passed." Ahsoka's expression sobered. "What about Johnny?" Anakin had been thinking about that. Ghost Rider was a weapon, maybe the only weapon capable of facing Sidious directly. But he was also unpredictable, driven by a spirit that didn't care about politics or strategy or collateral damage. He wants to go to Palpatine's office, look him in the eye, let the galaxy see what he is. That's insane. Maybe, or maybe it's the only play we have. Anakin stood, moving to the viewport. Coruscant was visible now, a sphere of light in the darkness, the capital of the Republic, the heart of a democracy that had been hollowed out from within. If Johnny uses the Penance Stare on Palpatine in front of witnesses, in front of the HoloNet, there's no denying what he is. The whole galaxy sees it. No spin, no cover-up. And if Palpatine has defenses, if he's stronger than Ghost Rider, then we're probably all dead anyway. Anakin turned to face her. Sidious has been planning this for decades. He's got contingencies we can't even imagine. The only advantage we have is that he doesn't know we know. We have to use that before he realizes and adjusts. You want to confront him. I want to end this, whatever that takes. Ahsoka was quiet for a moment. Then, what about the Council? Don't they deserve to know? Anakin thought about Mace Windu, who had never trusted him, about Yoda, whose cryptic wisdom never seemed to include clear answers, about all the times the Council had held him back, doubted him, kept him at arm's length because they sensed the darkness he carried. They wouldn't believe him, and even if they did, they would deliberate, debate, form committees. By the time they decided to act, Sidious would be gone, or worse, ready for them. The Council, Anakin said slowly, is going to have to trust me for once. They landed at the Jedi Temple as the sun set over Coruscant's endless cityscape, painting the spires in shades of gold and red. Anakin requested a private meeting with the Council, but only Obi-Wan was available on short notice. The others were scattered across the galaxy, fighting battles that now felt meaningless. They met in Obi-Wan's quarters, Anakin, Ahsoka, and Johnny Blaze. Facing the man who had trained Anakin, guided him, and probably knew him better than anyone except Palpatine. "You seem troubled," Obi-Wan observed, his eyes moving between them. "More troubled than a successful liberation of Tatooine would suggest." "What happened?" Anakin told him. All of it. Dooku's message, the meeting at the tower, the revelation about Palpatine. He watched Obi-Wan's expression shift from skepticism to concern to something that looked almost like relief. "You believe me," Anakin said when he finished. "I believe that Dooku believes it." Obi-Wan stroked his beard thoughtfully. "Whether it's true or whether he's been fed false information to destabilize us, that's another question." "It's true." Johnny spoke for the first time. "I saw his guilt, his memories. Palpatine is what Dooku says he is." And more. More? The Chancellor's sins aren't just about this war. They go back decades. He's been orchestrating things. Murders, manipulations, entire civilizations destroyed to serve his plans. The Separatists are just the latest tool. Johnny's jaw tightened. "I've seen evil before. Real evil, the kind that damns souls forever. Palpatine is that. He's worse than that." Obi-Wan was quiet for a long moment. Then, "The Council has suspected for some time that the Sith Lord we've been hunting is close to the Chancellor, perhaps in his inner circle, perhaps in the Senate itself. But Palpatine himself," he shook his head. "He's been a friend to the Jedi for years, supported us, defended us, argued for our role in the war when others called for our dissolution. That's how he hid," Anakin said, "in plain sight, making himself indispensable so no one would ever suspect." If this is true, and I'm not yet convinced it is, the implications are staggering. Every decision made during this war, every strategy approved by the Chancellor's office, every piece of intelligence that passed through his hands, all of it compromised, all of it serving a purpose we never understood. "Then let's find out." Anakin leaned forward. "Johnny can see guilt, can prove guilt beyond any doubt. Let him look at Palpatine. If he's innocent, we know. If he's not, we have proof that cannot be denied. Yes." Obi-Wan's eyes moved to Johnny. "But it's not that simple, is it? Your Penance Stare doesn't just reveal guilt, it punishes it. What happens if you use it on the Chancellor and he truly is Darth Sidious? What happens if you destroy his mind in front of the entire Senate?" "Then the war is over," Anakin said, "and we've assassinated the legally elected leader of the Republic based on the accusation of a being from another dimension and the testimony of a Sith Lord. Even if we're right, especially if we're right, there will be chaos. The Separatists will claim we're the aggressors. Systems on the fence will turn against us. The Republic could tear itself apart. So we do nothing? We let him continue? We are careful." Obi-Wan stood, pacing. "We gather evidence through conventional means. We watch him, monitor his communications, look for proof that can be presented to the Senate, and we involve the Council, not as a committee to debate, but as a strike force ready to move when the moment is right." "And how many die while we're being careful?" Fewer than will die if we act rashly and fail. Obi-Wan's voice hardened. Anakin, I understand your urgency. I feel it too. But this is the most dangerous enemy we've ever faced. A Sith Lord who has spent decades infiltrating the highest levels of the Republic. If we move against him without absolute certainty, without overwhelming force, he will destroy us. And everything we've fought for will be lost. The room fell silent. Anakin's fists clenched at his sides, frustration radiating off him in waves. What about him? Ahsoka asked, nodding toward Johnny. What's his role in all this? Obi-Wan considered the question. If Palpatine is Sidious, he surely knows about Ghost Rider by now, knows what he can do. He'll be watching for any approach, any attempt to bring the spirit of vengeance into his presence. He turned to Johnny. Can you get close to him without him knowing? The spirit doesn't hide, Johnny said. That's not what it does. Then perhaps a different approach. Obi-Wan's mind was working, calculating. The Chancellor has requested a meeting with Anakin several times since Ryloth. He wants to congratulate him personally on the liberation. If Anakin accepts, attends the meeting in Palpatine's office, he could observe, look for proof, and if something happens, if the Chancellor makes a move. I'll be there, Johnny finished, waiting. It's risky. If Palpatine senses the trap, then we spring it early. Anakin's voice was steady now, resolved. I'll go to the meeting. I'll look him in the eye, knowing what he is. And I'll see what he reveals. And if he makes a move, if he tries anything, Johnny comes in and we end it. Obi-Wan studied his former Padawan. You can do this, sit across from him, smile, make conversation, all while knowing what he's done? Anakin thought about all the times he'd trusted Palpatine, confided in him, taken his advice over the councils because it felt right, because the Chancellor understood him in ways the Jedi never had. All those years, all that manipulation, and he'd never seen it. Yes, Anakin said coldly, I can do this. The meeting was scheduled for the following evening. Anakin spent the intervening hours in preparation. Not combat preparation, but mental. He meditated, which he rarely did. He reviewed his conversations with Palpatine, looking for the lies he'd missed. He practiced his control, his mask, his ability to hide his true feelings behind a facade of trust and admiration. He was going to walk into the office of a Sith Lord and pretend to be the naive apprentice Palpatine thought he was. If he failed, if Sidious sensed his knowledge, it was over. The Sith Lord would act, and all their planning would be for nothing. No pressure. Ahsoka found him in the temple's room of 1,000 fountains, sitting beside a pool that reflected the artificial sky. You don't have to do this alone, she said, settling beside him. Yes, I do. If you or Obi-Wan come, he'll sense something's wrong. But me, I've always been his favorite, his project. The word tasted bitter. He'll expect me to be eager, grateful, obedient. And Johnny? Waiting in the Senate building. Close enough to reach me in seconds if things go wrong. How will he know if things go wrong? Anakin touched his chest. He'll know. The spirit senses danger, and I have a feeling Palpatine's going to give it plenty to sense. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the water. Master, Ahsoka said quietly, after this is over, after Palpatine is gone, what happens? I don't know. The war continues, I guess. Without Sidious manipulating both sides, maybe we can actually end it, or maybe everything falls apart. Anakin stared at the water. I try not to think too far ahead anymore. Every time I do, I see fire. Johnny's vision, your future. A future. Maybe not the future. That's what he said. It's not written yet. I can still choose differently. Then choose differently. Ahsoka's hand found his. Whatever Palpatine's been pushing you toward, whatever darkness he's been cultivating, you don't have to let it win. You're stronger than that. Am I? He's been working on me since I was 9 years old, Ahsoka. What if it's already too late? What if the darkness is already... Then you fight it. Her grip tightened. Every day, every choice, you fight it. That's what Johnny said, isn't it? The monster or the man. You choose. Anakin looked at his Padawan, this young woman who had more faith in him than he had in himself. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just never listened. He almost smiled. Almost. Ahsoka, if something happens tomorrow, if I don't. She stood, pulling him up with her. Don't say goodbye. Don't make this a final moment. You're going to walk into that office, do what needs to be done, and walk out again. And then we're going to end this war and figure out what comes next. Together. Anakin wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that there was a future beyond tomorrow, beyond Palpatine, beyond the fire that haunted his visions. He wasn't sure he did, but he nodded anyway. The Chancellor's office was warm and welcoming, as it always was. Palpatine rose from behind his desk as Anakin entered, his smile genuine and paternal. Anakin, my boy, thank you for coming. I know how busy you are. The liberation of Tatooine was quite impressive. The Senate is already discussing how to build on that success. Thank you, Chancellor. Anakin kept his voice steady, his expression open, eager, grateful, obedient. I was honored to lead the operation. Honored and effective, a rare combination in these difficult times. Palpatine gestured to a seat, and Anakin took it. I wanted to speak with you privately because I'm concerned, Anakin, about the Jedi, about their plans. Their plans? The Council grows more secretive by the day. They pursue agendas they don't share with the Senate or with the Chancellor's office. I fear they're moving toward something drastic, something that could threaten the stability of the Republic itself. Anakin felt a chill. This was it, the manipulation, the wedge being driven between him and the Order. He'd heard it before and believed it. Now he saw it for what it was. I'm sure the Council is just being cautious, he said carefully. The war has made everyone protective of information. Perhaps. Or perhaps they sense that their time is ending. Palpatine leaned forward, his voice dropping to a confidential murmur. The Jedi have always believed themselves the guardians of the Republic, Anakin. But what happens when the Republic no longer needs guarding, when peace returns and their role becomes unclear? The Jedi serve the Force. They'll adapt. Will they? Or will they cling to power as all institutions do? Will they resist any change that threatens their influence? Palpatine's eyes bored into Anakin's. I tell you this as a friend, Anakin. The Jedi may not be what you believe them to be, and when the time comes to choose between them and the Republic, I hope you'll remember who has always supported you. Who has always manipulated you, Anakin thought, who has been grooming you for exactly this choice. He smiled. Of course, Chancellor, your guidance has always meant everything to me. Palpatine smiled back, and in the corridor, outside the office, hidden in shadows that seemed to deepen around him, Johnny Blaze felt the spirit of vengeance stir. Something was coming. Something was about to break. The moment shattered like glass. Anakin felt it before he saw it, a ripple in the Force, a shift in Palpatine's presence that dropped the mask the Chancellor had worn for decades. One instant he was the kindly mentor, the concerned friend. The next, something ancient and terrible looked out through his eyes. "You know," Palpatine said softly. It wasn't a question. Anakin's hand moved toward his lightsaber. "Don't." The word carried weight, power, a command that pressed against Anakin's will like a physical force. "You came here to trap me, Anakin. You and your burning friend waiting in the corridor. Did you think I wouldn't sense it? Did you think anything happens in this building that I don't know about? How long?" Anakin's voice was steady, but his heart hammered against his ribs. "How long have you been lying to me?" "Lying? I've never lied to you, my boy. Everything I've told you is true, from a certain point of view." Palpatine's smile was different now, colder, the grandfatherly warmth stripped away to reveal the predator beneath. "The Jedi are holding you back. The Council doesn't trust you. You are destined for more than they will ever allow you to become." All true. "You're Sith." "I am the Sith, the culmination of 1,000 years of planning, of patience, of power accumulated in the shadows while the Jedi grew complacent and weak." Palpatine stood, and the room seemed to darken around him. "And you, Anakin, you were always meant to stand beside me, the chosen one, born of the Force itself, shaped by my hand into the weapon that will bring order to the galaxy. I'll never join you. Won't you?" Palpatine's voice dropped to a whisper. "I know what you fear, Anakin. I've always known. The dreams of your mother dying. I could have helped you save her, but the Jedi wouldn't allow it. And now the dreams of Padme." Anakin's blood turned to ice. "Yes, I know about her, about the child she carries, about the visions of her death that plague your sleep." Palpatine's yellow eyes gleamed in the shadows. "The dark side is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. I can teach you to save her, Anakin. I can give you the power to cheat death itself. All you have to do is—" The window exploded inward. Ghost Rider crashed through the transparent steel in a storm of hellfire and chains, the spirit of vengeance fully manifested, skull blazing with infernal light. He landed between Anakin and Palpatine, chains whipping around him like living serpents. Sidious. The name echoed through the office, through the Force, through dimensions beyond mortal perception. The spirit had found its prey, the greatest concentration of sin and guilt it had ever encountered, millennia of manipulation and murder compressed into one being. Palpatine didn't flinch. "Ah, the spirit of vengeance." His voice was calm, almost amused. "I wondered when you would make your entrance. Tell me, creature, do you truly believe you can judge me? I am beyond your comprehension, beyond your petty morality. I am the dark side incarnate." "You are guilty!" Ghost Rider's chains shot forward. "You are damned!" Lightning erupted from Palpatine's hands. Not the bright blue of conventional Force lightning, but something darker, purple-black, crackling with the concentrated fury of the dark side itself. It struck Ghost Rider full in the chest and drove him backward, hellfire flickering as the spirit fought to maintain its form. "Your power is impressive," Palpatine acknowledged, lightning still pouring from his fingers. "But you are not the first demon I have encountered, not the first ancient spirit I have bent to my will, and you will not be the last." Ghost Rider roared and pushed forward through the lightning, chain lashing out. Palpatine deflected it with a gesture, sending the hellfire-infused links crashing through his desk and into the wall. The office was being destroyed around them. furniture burning, artifacts shattering, the very air crackling with the collision of two primal forces. Anakin ignited his lightsaber. He moved without thinking, without planning, pure instinct driving him toward Palpatine, while Ghost Rider kept the Sith Lord engaged. His blade swept in a killing arc toward Palpatine's back. Palpatine caught it with his bare hand. The dark side flowed through him like a conduit, wrapping around the plasma blade, holding it in place. He turned to face Anakin, lightning still streaming from his other hand toward Ghost Rider, and smiled. "You could have been magnificent," he said, "but you've chosen to be a pawn instead of a king. Such a waste." He pushed, and Anakin flew across the office, crashing through the ruined window and into the night air beyond. Anakin fell. The Chancellor's office was near the top of the Senate building, a drop of hundreds of meters to the platforms below. Wind screamed past him as he plummeted, the lights of Coruscant blurring into streaks. He reached for the Force, grabbed a passing speeder, used its momentum to swing himself onto a lower platform. He hit hard, rolling, his lightsaber skittering away across the durasteel. For a moment he lay there, gasping, staring up at the fires burning in Palpatine's office far above. Get up and get back there." He retrieved his lightsaber and ran for the turbo lift. Ghost Rider and Sidious tore the office apart. Hellfire met dark side lightning in explosions that shattered walls and melted durasteel. Chains clashed against Force barriers that hummed with power. The spirit of vengeance poured everything it had into destroying this avatar of evil, and found an enemy that would not fall. Palpatine was strong, stronger than anything Johnny had faced in his own dimension. The dark side flowed through him like a river of corruption, and he wielded it with the skill of a master who had spent decades honing his craft. Every attack was countered, every opening was a trap. "You cannot escape judgment," Ghost Rider snarled, chains wrapping around Palpatine's arm. "Your sins demand." "My sins are glorious." Palpatine wrenched free, Force lightning scorching the chains black. "Every death, every manipulation, every moment of suffering I've caused, they are the steps of my ascension. Do you think I feel guilt, creature? I feel triumph. I feel power. I feel the galaxy bending to my will as it was always meant to." He raised both hands, and the lightning intensified, a storm of dark side energy that engulfed Ghost Rider completely. The hellfire dimmed. The skull's flames flickered. "Your power comes from sin," Palpatine hissed, "from guilt and suffering and the weight of transgression, but I have transcended such limitations. The dark side has burned away everything human in me. There is no guilt to punish, no conscience to condemn, only power and the will to use it." Ghost Rider fell to one knee, the Penance Stare trying to ignite but finding nothing to grasp. Johnny's voice emerged from the burning skull, strained with effort. "Everyone has guilt. Not everyone, not the truly strong." Palpatine stood over him, lightning still pouring down, pressing the spirit of vengeance toward oblivion. "You are a relic of a smaller universe, demon, an enforcer of moral laws that have no meaning here. In this galaxy there is only the Force, and those with the power to command it." The office door exploded inward. Anakin came through it like a storm, lightsaber blazing, the Force amplifying his speed and strength beyond anything he'd achieved before. He hit Palpatine from the side, blade carving toward the Sith Lord's neck. Palpatine spun away, finally releasing the lightning, and ignited his own weapon, a crimson blade that hummed with malevolent energy. He met Anakin's attack with a Makashi riposte that nearly took the young Jedi's arm off. Still fighting, Palpatine observed. Still clinging to the light, but I can feel your anger, Anakin, your hatred. You want to kill me, not for justice, but for revenge. For all the years I manipulated you, for the future I tried to steal. His smile was cruel. That anger is the dark side. Use it, strike me down, and take your place as a Sith. I am no Sith, not yet, but soon, whether today or tomorrow, whether by my hand or another's. You will fall, Anakin Skywalker. The dark side is your destiny. It always has been. They dueled across the ruined office, red blade against blue, Sith Lord against Jedi Knight. Palpatine was older but faster, his Makashi bladework precise and efficient. Anakin was younger but stronger, his Digem, so attacks powered by rage he could barely control. Behind them, Ghost Rider rose. Johnny felt the spirit surge back to full power as Palpatine's attention shifted to Anakin. The lightning had hurt. Actually hurt in a way nothing had since he'd first bonded with the demon. Whatever Sidious was, whatever the dark side had made him, it was enough to challenge even the spirit of vengeance. But challenge was not defeat. Sidious. The name rolled through the office like thunder. Palpatine and Anakin both turned as Ghost Rider rose to his feet, hellfire blazing brighter than before, not orange and red now, but white-hot, burning with an intensity that seared the very air. You believe yourself beyond guilt, beyond consequence. You have convinced yourself that power erases sin, that strength justifies suffering. The skull's empty eyes fixed on the Sith Lord. You are wrong. I am never wrong. You are always wrong. That is what makes you damned. Ghost Rider's chain shot out, not toward Palpatine, but past him, wrapping around a support column and using it to swing the spirit directly into the Sith Lord's path. Palpatine raised his lightsaber, but Ghost Rider caught the blade in his bare hand, hellfire versus plasma, and wrenched it aside. His other hand closed around Palpatine's face. You think you feel no guilt? Let me show you what guilt truly is. The Penance Stare ignited. Palpatine had been wrong. He did feel guilt. He had simply buried it so deep, encased it in so many layers of dark side power and self-justification that he no longer recognized it for what it was. But the guilt was there. Every murder, every betrayal, every moment of suffering he had caused across decades of manipulation and scheming. The spirit of vengeance found it, all of it, and it made him feel. Palpatine screamed. For the first time in perhaps his entire life, the Dark Lord of the Sith experienced the consequences of his actions. He felt the deaths of the Jedi he had orchestrated, not just the recent ones, but going back decades. He felt the suffering of Naboo under Trade Federation occupation. He felt the clone soldiers dying by the millions in a war he had engineered. He felt every slave sold in territories he controlled, every civilian killed by weapons he had funded, every life destroyed so that his power could grow, all of it, every moment, experienced simultaneously, his body convulsed, his connection to the Force, to the dark side that had sustained him, wavered and flickered. The weight of his own sins crushed down on him, more than any being could bear. And Johnny Blaze made a decision. Destroy him, the spirit demanded. Burn his soul to ash. End him forever. Johnny could feel Palpatine's essence in his grip, slippery, corrupted, fighting to escape. It would be easy to finish the stare, to annihilate everything the Sith Lord was, and send him to whatever hell awaited beings of such absolute evil. It would be justice. Real justice, the kind that courts and senates and Jedi councils could never deliver. But it wouldn't be enough. If Palpatine died here in this office, the galaxy would never know the full truth. The Separatists would claim it was a Republic coup. The war would continue, maybe forever. And Sidious, the name, the legend, the threat, would become a martyr instead of a monster. The galaxy needed to see what he was, needed to understand what had been done to them. No, Johnny told the spirit, not yet. He released the stare. Palpatine collapsed to the floor, gasping, twitching, his robes smoking where the hellfire had touched them. He was alive, barely. His mind was shattered but not destroyed, his memories and guilt laid bare for anyone to see. Johnny transformed back into human form, swaying on his feet. That had been close. Palpatine's dark side power had nearly overwhelmed the spirit, and maintaining the stare against such resistance had cost him. But it was done. "Anakin," Johnny said hoarsely, "call the council, call the Senate, call everyone." He looked down at the broken Sith Lord at his feet. It's time the galaxy met the real Palpatine. They came within the hour. Jedi masters, senators, security forces, HoloNet reporters who had somehow gotten wind of the incident. They filled the ruined office and the corridors beyond, staring at the devastation and at the man curled on the floor, whimpering, his eyes empty and staring. Mace Windu approached the body, his expression unreadable. "Darth Sidious," he said quietly, "hidden in plain sight, all these years." "He's not dead," Anakin said. "Ghost Rider showed him his guilt, made him experience it. But he's still alive, still in there somewhere. Then he'll stand trial, face justice for what he's done. Will that be enough? After everything, the war, the manipulation, the millions dead?" Windu looked at Anakin for a long moment. "It will have to be. That's how justice works in the Republic, even for monsters like him." "And what happens when the Republic is too corrupt to deliver justice?" Anakin wanted to ask. "What happens when the system Palpatine built is still in place, even with him gone?" But he didn't. There would be time for those questions later. Right now, the most dangerous being in the galaxy was finally exposed. It would have to be enough. Johnny found Obi-Wan in the corridor outside, watching the chaos with an expression of profound weariness. "You did it," Obi-Wan said. "I wasn't sure it was possible, but you did it." "He's not dead." "No, but he's finished. Whatever he was planning, whatever endgame he had in mind, it's over now." Obi-Wan studied Johnny with curious eyes. "You could have killed him. The spirit wanted to. I could feel it from here. Why didn't you?" Johnny leaned against the wall, exhausted in a way that went beyond physical fatigue. "Because killing him wouldn't have been enough. The galaxy needed to see what he was, needed to understand how badly they'd been fooled." He paused. "And because, I don't know. Maybe I'm tired of being the executioner. Maybe I wanted to prove, to myself, to the spirit, that there's more to justice than punishment." "That's a very Jedi sentiment." "Don't insult me." Obi-Wan smiled slightly. "What will you do now? The war isn't over. Dooku still leads the Separatists. Grievous is still out there hunting for revenge after what you did to him. The galaxy is still in chaos." Johnny thought about it, about the endless guilt he could sense across 1,000 worlds, about the spirit's hunger, always demanding more, about the man he wanted to be versus the monster he carried. "I don't know," he admitted. "I came here by accident. I don't have a place in this galaxy, a purpose beyond what the spirit demands. But..." He looked through the doorway at Anakin, who was speaking with the Jedi Council, his expression haunted but resolved. Maybe I could help, not as a weapon, not as something to be pointed at enemies and unleashed, but as something else, something better. A guardian, a rider, someone who goes where he's needed and does what needs to be done. Johnny pushed off the wall, straightening. The spirit will always want vengeance. That's its nature. But I decide how that vengeance is delivered. I decide who deserves it and who deserves a chance to be better. He met Obi-Wan's eyes. I chose not to destroy Palpatine because the galaxy needed to see the truth. Maybe that's what I can do here. Not just punish the guilty, but expose them. Make sure everyone sees what evil really looks like so they can fight it. That's a difficult path. More difficult than simple vengeance. Yeah, Johnny smiled grimly. But since when has anything about my life been simple? He walked toward the ruined office, toward Anakin and the Council, and the broken Sith Lord who had nearly destroyed everything. Behind him, hellfire flickered briefly around his shoulders, the spirit acknowledging his choice, accepting it. For now, the war wasn't over. The galaxy was still burning, and somewhere out there, Dooku and Grievous were planning their next move. But for the first time since he'd arrived in this strange universe, Johnny Blaze felt something like purpose. Maybe that was enough. The trial of Palpatine lasted 3 weeks. The Senate transformed into a courtroom with representatives from every member world, watching as evidence was presented. Financial records, communication logs, testimony from beings who had been coerced or manipulated into serving the Sith Lord's agenda. Dooku's revelations were corroborated by data pulled from Palpatine's personal archives, painting a picture of corruption so vast it seemed impossible that no one had seen it. But they hadn't. That was the horror of it. An entire galaxy had been fooled. Johnny watched from the gallery as witness after witness took the stand. Clone commanders who had received secret orders they didn't understand. Senators who had been blackmailed into supporting legislation. Jedi who had sensed something wrong, but couldn't identify the source. The scope of Palpatine's manipulation was staggering. Decades of careful planning, thousands of lives destroyed, millions more warped to serve his vision. And at the center of it all, the man himself sat in a containment field, his eyes vacant, his mouth occasionally moving in whispers no one could hear. The Penance Stare hadn't killed him, but it had broken something fundamental. The architects of cruelty rarely survived experiencing their own handiwork. "He'll be convicted," Anakin said, appearing beside Johnny. "The evidence is overwhelming. Even his allies in the Senate can't defend him now." "And then what? Prison? Execution?" "The Senate will decide. Probably imprisonment on a secure facility, somewhere he can't influence anyone, can't manipulate his way free." Anakin's jaw tightened. It's not enough. After everything he did, it's not nearly enough. "No, it's not." Johnny looked at the broken Sith Lord in his containment field. "But it's what the system can give, and sometimes that has to be enough." "You sound like Obi-Wan." "Worse things to sound like." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the proceedings. Then Anakin spoke again, his voice quieter. The vision stopped. Johnny turned to look at him. The dreams of Padme dying, the fire, the destruction, all of it. Anakin's eyes were haunted, but clearer than Johnny had ever seen them. "When you showed me what Palpatine was planning, what I would become if I followed his path, something changed. I could see the future he wanted for me, and I could choose differently. You still have darkness in you. I know, I'll always have it, but now I know what it looks like when it wins. I know where that road leads, Anakin met Johnny's eyes. "I'm not going to let it take me, not anymore." Johnny studied the young Jedi, the fear he still carried, the anger that simmered beneath the surface, the desperate love that had made him so vulnerable to manipulation. All of it was still there, but there was something else now too. Awareness, understanding. Maybe that was enough to change the future. Maybe. "The war's not over," Johnny said. "Dooku's still out there, Grievous, the whole Separatist army." "I know. The Council is already planning the next campaign." Anakin hesitated. "They want you to be part of it." "Part of what?" "The assault on Separatist leadership. Dooku exposed Palpatine to us, but that doesn't make him an ally. He did it to serve his own ambitions. With Sidious gone, he'll try to take control. Remake the Separatists in his own image. And the Council wants me to stop him. The Council wants to win the war. You're the most powerful weapon we have." Anakin's expression was conflicted. "But I told them you're not a weapon. You're a person, and you get to decide what you do with your power." Johnny almost smiled. A few weeks ago, Anakin had been fascinated by that power, eager to see it unleashed, to point it at enemies and let it burn. Now he was defending Johnny's right to choose. People could change, even when the darkness was strong. "What do you think I should do?" Johnny asked. Anakin considered the question carefully. "I think Dooku needs to answer for what he's done, and Grievous, and everyone who's used this war to hurt innocent people." He paused. "But I also think the galaxy doesn't need another executioner. It needs someone who can show people the truth about themselves, about what they've done, and give them a chance to be better. And if they can't be better, then they face the consequences, but they get the chance first." Anakin looked back at Palpatine's broken form. He never gave anyone a chance. That's part of what made him a monster. We have to be better than that. Johnny thought about everything he'd seen since arriving in this galaxy. The war, the suffering, the endless guilty crying out for judgment. The Spirit wanted to burn it all, wanted to reduce every sinner to ash and start over with clean slate. But that wasn't justice. That was annihilation. "Okay," Johnny said, "I'll help end the war, but on my terms. I choose the targets. I choose the methods. And if I decide someone deserves a chance to face real justice instead of the stare, then that's your call." Anakin extended his hand. "Partners?" Johnny looked at the offered hand. A Jedi, a man carrying darkness he was only beginning to understand, asking a demon for alliance. A few weeks ago it would have seemed absurd. Now it felt right. "Partners," Johnny said and shook. The final campaign began a week later. Republic forces launched a coordinated assault on Separatist strongholds across the Outer Rim, targeting the leadership that had kept the war machine running. Newt Gunray on Cato Neimoidia, Poggle the Lesser on Geonosis, Shu Mai on Felucia. One by one, the architects of Separatist atrocities were brought to justice, some through Republic tribunals, others through the more direct judgment of the Spirit of Vengeance. Johnny rode with Anakin's forces, but not as a soldier. He moved ahead of the armies, appearing at Separatist command posts and war crime sites, exposing guilt wherever he found it. Leaders who had ordered massacres, officers who had profited from slavery, politicians who had traded lives for credits. Some he judged with the stare, leaving them broken husks for Republic forces to collect. Others he simply exposed, revealing their sins to subordinates and allies, letting the truth do what fire could not. It was slower than pure vengeance, more difficult, but it was also more effective. the Separatists began to fracture. With their sins laid bare, commanders lost the loyalty of their troops. Alliances dissolved as members realized what their partners had done. The Confederacy of Independent Systems, built on promises of freedom from Republic corruption, crumbled as its own corruption was revealed. And at the center of it all, Count Dooku watched his empire collapse. They found him on Sereno. The Count's homeworld was a place of elegant estates and ancient traditions, a stark contrast to the industrial hellscapes where most of the war had been fought. Dooku had retreated here as his forces fell apart, returning to the seat of his family's power for what he must have known would be a final stand. Johnny came alone. The estate's guards, battle droids, and organic mercenaries alike fell before him like wheat before a scythe. Hellfire consumed metal and flesh without distinction, chains scything through defensive positions, the spirit of vengeance cutting a path to its target with implacable determination. He found Dooku in the grand hall of the family manor, standing before a portrait of his ancestors. The Count wore his lightsaber but hadn't ignited it. His expression was calm, almost peaceful. "I wondered when you would come," Dooku said without turning. "I assume the Republic forces are not far behind. They're securing the perimeter, but this—" Ghost Rider's voice echoed through the hall. "This is between us." "Yes, I suppose it is." Dooku finally turned, and his eyes showed no fear, only a weary acceptance. "I gave you Sidious. I thought that would earn me consideration." "You gave me Sidious to serve your own ambitions. You wanted me to destroy your master so you could take his place." "True. But I also told you the truth when the Jedi would not. I revealed the cancer at the heart of the Republic. Doesn't that count for something?" Ghost Rider stepped closer, flames casting dancing shadows across the ancient walls. "You started a war that killed millions. You ordered atrocities across 100 worlds. You betrayed everything you once believed in for power. I betrayed a corrupt Republic and a failing Jedi Order. Everything I did was in service of a greater vision, a galaxy united under strong leadership, free from the weakness and bureaucracy that— Spare me." The chain whipped out, wrapping around Dooku's wrist before he could reach for his lightsaber. "I've heard every justification, every excuse, every greater good that tyrants use to sleep at night. It's always the same. You cause suffering because you want power, and you dress it up in ideology to convince yourself you're not a monster." "And what are you?" Dooku's voice hardened. "You burn and destroy in the name of vengeance. How is that different?" "Because I don't pretend it's anything else." The stare began to ignite, then stopped. Johnny's voice emerged from the skull, quieter than before. "I could destroy you. Part of me wants to. After everything you've done, you deserve it. Then do it. I've made my peace." "No." The flames dimmed slightly. "You gave me the truth about Palpatine. You were right that the Jedi wouldn't have believed me without proof. And because of that, because Anakin saw what he was becoming in time to change, the future is different now." "So I'm to be spared? How magnanimous." "You're to face justice, real justice, trial, evidence, judgment by the beings you've wronged." "Not my justice." Johnny's grip on the chain tightened. "But know this, Dooku, if you escape, if you manipulate your way free, if you ever hurt innocent people again, you'll find me. Yes, I understand." Dooku's smile was thin, bitter. "I suppose I should be grateful. This is more mercy than Sidious would have shown." "It's not mercy, it's a chance." Johnny released the chain, letting Dooku's arm fall free. What you do with it is up to you. Republic forces entered the manor moments later, taking the Count into custody without resistance. He went quietly, dignity intact, as if being arrested for war crimes was simply another inconvenience to be managed. Maybe it was. Men like Dooku had resources, connections, ways of avoiding consequences. The Republic's justice system was better than nothing, but it was far from perfect. Still, it was justice, and that had to count for something. Grievous was harder. The cyborg general had gone to ground after Ryloth, nursing his wounds and his hatred in equal measure. The Penance Stare had shown him what he truly was. Not a warrior, but a murderer. Not a weapon, but a butcher. And that revelation had broken something in him. But broken wasn't destroyed. And Grievous had been broken before. He resurfaced on Utapau, commanding the remnants of the Separatist droid army in a last desperate stand. Republic intelligence tracked him there, and the Council dispatched a strike team to eliminate the final obstacle to peace. They sent Obi-Wan, they sent Anakin, and they sent Ghost Rider. The battle for Utapau was brutal and brief. Clone forces overwhelmed the droid defenders, while Jedi and Spirit carved through the command structure. Grievous fought like a being possessed, 4 lightsabers spinning, his mechanical body pushed beyond its limits. But it wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. Obi-Wan engaged him first, their blades clashing in the familiar dance of enemies who had fought many times before. But Grievous was slower now, his movements haunted by the guilt he couldn't escape. Every strike was weaker than it should have been. Every defense came a fraction late. He was still seeing their faces, still hearing their screams. "You did this to me," Grievous rasped as Obi-Wan drove him back toward a landing platform. "The demon, it poisoned my mind." "It showed you the truth," Obi-Wan replied calmly. "What you did with that truth was your choice." "I had no choice. I was made for war, built to destroy. And yet here you are, fighting to survive instead of fighting to win." Obi-Wan's blade knocked 2 of Grievous's sabers aside. "You feel it now, don't you? The weight of what you've done. You can't escape it, Grievous. You can't go back to being the weapon you were. The Spirit made sure of that." Grievous screamed. Rage, anguish, the howl of a being confronting its own damnation, and launched himself at Obi-Wan with everything he had left. It wasn't enough. Obi-Wan sidestepped the attack and drove his blade into Grievous's chest, piercing the organ sac that housed what remained of his biological components. The cyborg general staggered, lightsabers falling from his hands, and collapsed on the platform. This isn't—" "It's over," Obi-Wan said quietly. "Let it be over." Grievous looked up at him with dying eyes. Organic eyes. The only part of him that was still truly alive, and for just a moment something like peace crossed his ruined features. Then the light faded and General Grievous was gone. Johnny found Obi-Wan standing over the body, his expression troubled. "He could have surrendered," Obi-Wan said. "At any point he could have stopped fighting, faced justice, but he chose death instead. Some people can't live with what they've done. The guilt destroys them, even without the stare. Is that supposed to be comforting? No, it's supposed to be true." Johnny looked at the cyborg's remains, the metal shell that had housed so much rage and pain. He was a weapon. That's all he ever wanted to be. When the stare showed him that weapons have consequences, that every death he caused had weight, he couldn't handle it. So the Spirit destroyed him after all, just slowly. The Spirit showed him the truth. What he did with it was his choice. Johnny turned away from the body. That's all any of us can do. Show people what they are and let them decide what to do about it. Obi-Wan was quiet for a moment. Then, the war is effectively over. With Grievous dead and Dooku captured, the Separatist leadership is gone. The droid armies will shut down within days. So you won. We won, all of us. Obi-Wan's eyes met Johnny's, including you. The Republic owes you a great debt, Johnny Blaze. Without you, Palpatine would still be in power. The war would still be grinding on. Anakin would be... He stopped, unwilling to finish the sentence. Anakin would be lost, Johnny finished for him. I know, I saw it. But he's not lost. Because you showed him what he was becoming, in time for him to choose differently. Obi-Wan's voice carried genuine warmth. Whatever you believe about yourself, whatever the Spirit tells you about what you are, you saved him. You saved all of us. Johnny didn't know what to say to that. He'd come to this galaxy by accident, expecting to find a way home and leave. Instead, he'd found a war, a conspiracy, and a young man carrying darkness he didn't understand, and maybe somehow he'd made a difference. What happens now? Johnny asked. Now we rebuild. The Republic, the Jedi Order. Everything that Palpatine corrupted needs to be repaired. It will take years, decades, perhaps. And me? Obi-Wan smiled slightly. That's up to you, isn't it? The spirit of vengeance answers to no government, no order. You go where you're needed and do what needs to be done. There's still guilt out there, still sin. The war created a lot of monsters, profiteers, collaborators, people who did terrible things and got away with it. Yes, there are. Obi-Wan's expression sobered. And there always will be, Johnny. That's the nature of the galaxy. Evil doesn't end with one war or one Sith Lord. It adapts. It finds new forms. Then I guess I've got work to do. The spirit stirred inside him, hungry, eager, ready for the hunt. There would always be guilty to punish, always sin to burn. The feast would never truly end. But maybe that was okay. Maybe having a purpose, even a dark one, was better than having nothing at all. Johnny Blaze looked out over the battlefield, at the destroyed droids and fallen soldiers, at the Republic forces securing their victory, and the Separatist remnants surrendering in droves. The war was over. His war was just beginning. The Clone Wars ended not with a Sith Lord's triumph, but with his exposure. Darth Sidious revealed, his plans unraveled, his puppet strings cut by a spirit of vengeance that answered to no master. The galaxy would spend years recovering from the damage, rebuilding institutions that had been corrupted from within, learning to trust again after so profound a betrayal. But it would recover. That was the important thing. Anakin Skywalker returned to the Jedi Order as a knight transformed, still carrying darkness, still fighting his demons, but no longer blind to them. He had seen what he could become and chosen differently. The fire that had haunted his visions no longer burned. His future was unwritten, and for the first time that felt like hope instead of fear. Padme lived. Their children would be born into a galaxy at peace. And Johnny Blaze, the Ghost Rider, the spirit of vengeance, rode on. There would always be evil in the galaxy, always guilty who escaped justice, always powerful who preyed on the weak. The spirit would never rest, never stop hungering for sin to punish. But Johnny had learned something in this strange universe. Vengeance alone wasn't enough. Justice required truth, required exposure, required giving people the chance to see what they were and choose to be better. Some would fail that chance, those the Spirit would judge. But some would succeed, and that made all the difference. The war was over, but across the galaxy, in shadows and palaces, in corporate boardrooms and criminal hideouts, the guilty looked over their shoulders and wondered if they would be next. The Ghost Rider was watching, and he had all the time in the universe.